Chapter 827. Then I'll do what I want. Li Yunxin stood up slowly. The alley became even darker and windy. Qin Zhao stared at him. The two heard the family call, Qiu from behind the high wall. The girl sighed. I'm going to turn into a zombie. I should go back. What else do you want to say? Li Yunxin thought for a moment. Nice to see you. Qin Zhao forced a smile. Hey. Goodbye. Goodbye. The girl's eyes suddenly lost their light and her body froze. Li Yunxin bent down and pulled the corner of her lips, wiping away the smile on the corpse. Then he closed her eyes. He quickly walked out of the alley. Finally, he had time to think about what Qin Zhao's vague words meant. As he pondered this in his heart, he walked to the main street. He saw a group of soldiers jogging toward the other end of the street. They were armed with swords and spears. Something seemed to have happened. He didn't have to get close to see like mortals. He just needed to scan with his spiritual power. It seemed like someone had died in a tea house. The body was lying on the ground. Someone had slit the neck. Before dying, the person had struggled for a while and written the word, Gong Qi, on the ground with his own blood. He hadn't finished writing the second word. Normal people didn't know what it meant, but Li Yunxin was familiar with it. Was it the Freemasons? But hadn't Li Chunfeng already taken them in? Frowning, Qin Zhao scanned the wider area with his spiritual power. Instantly he found 3 more bodies. They hadn't been discovered yet. What was Li Chunfeng doing? Qin Zhao didn't walk anymore. With a flash, he appeared in the restaurant Li Chunfeng was staying in. Previously he'd only booked the 3rd floor. Now he'd booked the entire floor. When he appeared in the hall, he saw Li Chunfeng sitting by the window. There were a few other people in the hall. They froze when they saw him. Just as they were about to scold him, Li Chunfeng said in a low voice, "This is your sect leader. Didn't you say you wanted to see him? Why don't you greet him?" Those people stared blankly for a moment, then their eyes lit up. They kowtowed and shouted in unison, "Sect master above, Zhou Yinglu Mei Yizhen Shang Yan Lan, and Zhu Xiaoyu of the painting faction greet the sect master." Li Yunxin looked at them, then at Li Chunfeng. What's going on? Only then did Li Chunfeng say to them, "Get up. Tell sect master about the current situation." The 4 of them stood up. The man named Zhou Yinglu bowed again and said in a deep voice, "Sect master, please allow me to report. I just learned that the Freemasons have defected and joined the Golden Rock Fort, and they even brought some news with them. Several disciples in the city have been killed. I wonder what else they have taken away. These people should be the newly formed school of painting in this world." Li Yunxin noticed that they were all at the transcendent state. They could be considered as decent cultivators. However, he didn't believe a single word that Zhou Yinglu said. He didn't think that Zhou Yinglu was lying to him, but that Zhou Yinglu was also kept in the dark. The remnants of the Freemasons that Li Chunfeng had subdued had defected and taken away some news right under his nose? If Li Chunfeng was that stupid, he would have died a long time ago. He turned to look at him again. Li Chunfeng blinked his eyes. Thus Li Yunxin understood. She gave a faint and turned to go upstairs. Then he heard Li Chunfeng giving them some orders in the living room at a fast speed. At first glance, it sounded like some emergency measures to reduce losses. He even mentioned asking them to ask Rongjun for help in the name of Li Yunxin so that they could work together to intercept and kill the Freemasons. The 4 assented and made additional suggestions of their own, which were all accepted. Li Yunxin went up to the 2nd floor and sat down at a table. By then, the sun had already set behind the distant mountains. Double Tiger City became dark. Only then did he realize that he had only been in the city for a day. When he arrived in the morning, he first met Li Chunfeng. Then he saw that Li Yunxin was in a daze. Then he came back and asked Li Yunxin to find him. After strolling on the streets, Qin Zhao arrived. Now, it had only been a few hours. It was still as leisurely as when he was in Wei City. After sitting for half an hour, the streets in the city were lit up. Then he saw a few groups of Rongjun on the streets with torches in their hands, as if they were searching for someone. He sighed inwardly. Rongjun was also very efficient. He wondered if it was because of his reputation. Then Li Chunfeng also went upstairs. When he appeared at the staircase, he said, "I didn't expect Qin Zhao to see you so soon. I was caught off guard. I had to use this method." Li Yunxin turned to look at him. "You asked the Freemasons to rebel?" "Yes." Li Chunfeng waved his hand casually and the 2nd floor lit up. According to Qin Zhao's habits, he should only see you after a few days. I have some plans that I need to implement in those few days. But I saw you just now, right? If Jin Ping finds out about this, he'll probably do something desperate. That's why I had to do this. Normal people would be confused by these words, but Li Yunxin understood. If he was Jin Ping, he would definitely be proud of himself after becoming a Grand Supreme expert and helping Qin Zhao greatly. He would feel that he was on Qin Zhao's side. Even if he wasn't, he should be friends. If he knew that Chen Ying came to see Li Yunxin but not him, he would definitely think that he had been abandoned. Such an ambitious person wouldn't just wait for death. He would fight like a cornered beast. Chen Ying coming to see him was a secret, but if he were Li Chunfeng, he wouldn't take the risk either. Who knew if the Grand Supreme Rock King had some unexpected tricks up his sleeve? The two of them had always been cautious and prudent when it came to making preparations. They would only be frighteningly bold when it was time to fight with their lives. Li Yunxin thought for a moment. So you did this because I asked the Freemasons to betray me and go to Jin Peng. The reason is very reasonable. Elder Yunshan abandoned them in the past. Now that he found out that I'm working with him, he left. Li Chunfeng walked to the table and sat down. Also, I asked them to bring a message. They said that they know I'm planning to use Yunshan to plot against him. Then didn't you send out the secret of your trump card? I made some minor adjustments to the plan. Li Chunfeng smiled. Since you don't like to plot against him through Bai Yunxin, I thought I'd do it your way. But I can't let you take the risk alone. If you want to fight to your heart's content, I'll risk my life to accompany you. So I asked you to lure Jin Ping to the sky to talk and use Yunshan to attack him. Now you should really challenge him to a duel. I'll go with you. I'll tell him that since he already knows about my plan to use Yunshan, it'll be hard for us to win if we fight again. Even if we win by a narrow margin, all living beings in the world will die. Since that's the case, we can only try to make peace. Li Yunxin grunted. But since he wants to fight like a cornered beast, he definitely won't believe these words. So I'll go to him as a hostage, Li Chunfeng said solemnly. If I'm in his hands, even if he doesn't believe me, he'll temporarily let his guard down. Then he paused for a moment. But Li Yunxin didn't say anything. He looked like he was thinking seriously. Li Chunfeng had no choice but to say, then I'll immediately ask Yunshan to strike him with lightning. Li Yunxin looked up at him. Are you serious? You'll die. It's just the most ideal situation. Li Chunfeng smiled faintly. If I can kill Jin Ping with this strike, I'll die a worthy death. Besides, with you around, how can I really die? This is for you. As he spoke, he took out a scroll from his sleeve and handed it to Li Yunxin. Li Yunxin hesitated for a moment before unfolding it. It was none other than Li Chunfeng's self. But this self was not a shadow, nor was it an incarnation. All the essence of his spirit was drawn out. If this thing was drawn into a formation and supplemented with powerful spiritual qi, he could create another spirit like what he did in the city of Wei. With Li Yunxin's current supernatural power, it wouldn't be difficult for him to find another body for this spirit. But at the same time, giving this thing to someone else was also putting his life in the hands of someone else. If Li Yunxin wanted to kill him or harm him, this thing alone could destroy his soul from thousands of miles away. Li Yunxin was slightly moved. I know you don't necessarily believe me. You'll feel that I'm hiding something from you. In fact, there are some things that I haven't told you. But I won't tell you those things now. This is the only way to let you understand that I'm also a human. You'll get tired of hearing me talk about blood and flesh. But it's really in my heart. Li Chunfeng was silent for a long time and said in a low voice, if I really die because of this, you'll have time to think about it. If you really forgive me after many years, there's still a way for you to see me. I didn't teach you the method of drawing spirit before. I've only taught you bits and pieces. But cultivation has to be done step by step. I've carefully learned it in the painting school before, so my foundation is more solid than yours. Tonight we still have some kung fu. I'll teach you some more. Li Yunxin knew that at least what he said about cultivation was the truth. Cultivation seemed to be a big project. What he had learned and experienced before was just the skeleton. These things helped him advance his realm and his cultivation. But there was also a lot of flesh and blood that was slowly summarized and accumulated by more people. These flesh and blood contained many techniques and more magical uses. He should understand the principle of the method of drawing spirit that Li Chunfeng mentioned, but there were some subtle operations that he couldn't understand. For example, he was a new Grand Shang and had great power, but there were many magical uses that he had to slowly study. He fell silent. Li Chunfeng smiled and said, "Just like before, I'll teach you the technique first." Then in a low voice he slowly explained some of the key points of this technique. Then he broke down every detail and explained it slowly. The bright flame floating in the middle of the hall sprinkled dim yellow light, which indeed reminded Li Yunxin of the past. In the big house of the former residence, Li Chunfeng taught him the same way. He was patient and calm. After a quarter of an hour he explained everything clearly. Then Li Chunfeng looked at him. "Do you understand?" Li Yunxin said subconsciously, "I understand." So both of them were slightly stunned and fell silent. In the past, every teaching session would end with these two sentences. In the end, Li Yunxin spoke first. He frowned slightly and looked at Li Chunfeng's face. "You really regret it? What you said before was true." Li Chunfeng opened his mouth as if he had thousands of words to say. But in the end he only said, "I regret it." Li Yunxin smiled and frowned. Then he smiled and frowned. Finally he let out a long breath. "I won't let you die. In the afternoon I was walking on the street. And met a father and son. The son wasn't the father's biological son and the father knew it. He took the son to borrow money and when he got the money he took the son to eat a full meal and gambled. At that time I thought about the relationship between father and son. That gambling addict was like a scum to me, but he still had some feelings for a child who wasn't his biological son. I saw him enter the gambling house. I stood at the door but I felt very calm. There wasn't even a trace of anger. Because I understood one thing at that time." Li Yunxin took a deep breath, closed his eyes and turned his face slightly. "People have sorrows that can't be freed. Bad habits are sorrows that can't be freed. Responsibilities are also sorrows that can't be freed." He remained silent for a long time. "You just should have told me earlier." Li Chunfeng's eyes instantly turned red. "I really regret it." Li Yunxin smiled. "Never mind. Let's not talk about this. If you were killed by Cloud Mountain's thunder I would definitely save you. But what if you weren't? If Golden Rock dodged that strike, what would happen next?" Li Chunfeng laughed out loud, then wiped his face with his hand again. As if he had finally been forgiven by Li Yunxin, he finally looked happy, not as serious as before. "All right. Then let's get down to business." It was reasonable for him to be able to dodge that attack. "Then let's use this move. Do you still have the scroll I gave you?" He was referring to the scroll he gave to Li Yunxin the first time they met, the scroll drawn by him and the painters of the painting school. Li Yunxin took out the scroll. Li Chunfeng pointed at it and said, "Merge this scroll with the scroll I gave you before. Then the entire Midland will be in your hands. With your current power, you can do what the mother and child plate on Cloud Mountain did, temporarily bring all natural powers in Midland into the scroll. Back then Golden Rock dodged a fatal strike and you immediately used this move. The natural powers around him would be cut off instantly, and his own power would be stagnated. You should have experienced that when you fought against the Lord of Dao under Cloud Mountain." Li Yunxin remembered that as well. Back then he was at a low level. It was priest Qingshui who pointed at him from afar, cut off the natural powers around him and nearly killed him. It wasn't a happy past, but he didn't dwell on it. He only said, "So." As he spoke he took out the Imperial Heavenly Scripture. The 9 Seas map that Li Chunfeng had given him had already been incorporated into it. Qiao Jessen was here as well. He raised his hand and pointed at the scroll Li Chunfeng gave him. That scroll immediately transformed into a clear stream of light and merged into the scroll. As a result, the scroll shone brightly, illuminating Li Chunfeng's face with a different kind of expression. "By then you don't need to worry about me. You have a great helper and I know he was badly injured in the ocean. At that time the spiritual energy gathered in the map would be able to restore him to his original state. You two attack him at the same time while he's weak. There's no reason you can't win. But don't use this method in advance. Otherwise Golden Rock will sense the change of natural powers. Let that great saint suffer for a while." Chapter 828. Li Yunxin only said, "Okay." Li Chunfeng sighed softly. He seemed to be filled with emotions because of his current attitude. But no matter how many words he wanted to say, they only turned into a few sentences. "As long as we, are united, there is nothing in this world that we can't solve. Li Yunxin smiled. That's for the best. He turned to look at the round table in front of him and hesitated for a while. Since you've booked this place, is the chef still here? Li Chunfeng was stunned. Then he said repeatedly, yes, he's here. What do you want to eat? I'll ask them to bring it over. So after a quarter of an hour the dishes were served. The two of them ate and drank slowly in the hall, discussing the finer details of the plan they had come up with so that they might consider it more fully. If anyone saw them, they would think that the two of them had a harmonious relationship and there was no ill will between them. If they were said to be father and son, probably no one would think that it was out of the ordinary. The atmosphere in the hall was peaceful and calm as the battle was about to begin. It was even a little warm. Li Yunxin didn't leave until the second night watch period, when all the people in Shuanghu City had gone to bed and the streets were deserted. Li Chunfeng watched him from the window on the second floor. He saw him waving his sleeves and walking in the middle of the street, seemingly happy. He waited until he turned into an alley and disappeared before he let out a sigh of relief. Then he turned around and stared at the table of food and wine in the hall for a while, then walked downstairs. There was no one in the hall on the first floor, but there was some movement in the kitchen. Li Chunfeng lifted the curtain and walked in. He saw the head chef, and a waiter chatting around the chopping board. There were 3 cold dishes on the table. When the 3 saw him, they all straightened up and stopped talking. Li Chunfeng said, I'll go down for a while. The 3 of them removed the cold plates from the table and pushed them away together. The chopping board was moved away, revealing a secret passage below. Li Chunfeng walked in but stopped 3 steps down and asked, where are the people from the society now? The head chef said, in another 3 days they might reach the territory of the Golden Rock. If his people come to pick them up, it might be faster. Li Chunfeng nodded and walked down. He walked down the stairs. After about 40 steps, the light at the entrance above their heads had already become extremely dim. However, the inside of the passage was not dark. Some of the talismans emitted a glow that illuminated the path like torches. After walking a dozen steps along the flat ground, the view in front of him suddenly became clear. It was a rotunda. It should be as big as the main hall of this restaurant. But instead of tables and chairs, there were cocoon-like objects that were as tall as a person. They stood up and leaned against the wall in a circle. There were about 30 of them. The outer shell of the cocoon was translucent, and 3 of them had faint human-like shadows. It looked like smoke, but it was solidified. Cultivators should be able to tell that it was a soul. In the past, the soul in the cocoon would have been refined and transformed into the wandering soul that Li Yunxin had encountered in the city of Wei. But now this project should have stopped halfway through. They stayed in the cocoon like insects in amber. In the middle of the hall was a column that reached to the roof. Its surface was smooth like a huge piece of jade. Li Chunfeng walked to the column and reached out to touch it a few times. The column woke up and emitted a faint white light. Then 2 windows popped out. Li Chunfeng tapped on one of the windows. 5 or 6 seconds later, a man's image appeared on the column. Professor Shen. Li Chunfeng nodded slightly at him. I've already told Li Yunxin about it. Oh, Shenmu replied and turned to look at something beside him. He seemed to be busy talking at the same time. I have something to ask you. You said that the smallest unit of energy didn't exist in your world before. Did you think of this yourself, or did the scientific community in your world confirm it? My experimental data doesn't match. You should. Li Chunfeng interrupted him. Professor Shen will have time to talk about this later. Answer my question first. Do you know what Qin Zhao and Li Yunxin talked about today? What did Li Yunxin say to him? Shenmu blinked. Huh. What did he say? Li Chunfeng sighed. Did you forget? Today Qin Zhao met Li Yunxin. And he did it through an unusual channel. Oh, that. Shenmu waved his hand impatiently. There's nothing wrong with her. Everything is normal. Don't worry. Just do your own thing. Also, when will Yunshan send Zhao Jin down? Li Chunfeng shrugged. You know, we'll have to wait until we're done. When they're convinced that we won't be a threat to them anymore. Shenmu waved his hand angrily and pointed at Li Chunfeng's nose. If Li Chunfeng was here in person, he would definitely poke the tip of his nose. I'm so sick of you people. You only know how to plot against each other and waste your time on meaningless things. Don't they know that what we're doing is the optimal solution? As long as they have a bit of logical thinking, they won't worry about any random problems. The world is about to be destroyed and they're still wasting their time over some trivial things. Li Chunfeng smiled calmly. We're all ordinary people. Humph, ordinary people can't pretend to be a father and son and plot to kill him at the same time. Shin Mu snorted. I really admire him. If you guys weren't involved in so many troublesome things, I wouldn't have chosen you. You're a villain and a hypocrite. Why don't you learn from the good people in the world? Li Chunfeng was silent for a moment and smiled. Good people don't live long, Professor Shin. Alright, let's not talk about this. If there's nothing wrong with Chen Zhao, it should be because Li Yunxin listened to me and didn't say much about her. That means, he didn't guard against me either. Shin Mu waved his hand impatiently. I don't have time to listen to you people. What do you want from me? I hope you can guarantee that Chen Zhao and Bai Yanjun won't have any contact with Li Yunxin during this time, Li Chunfeng said. Right now Lu Gongzan isn't by his side. As long as there are no other factors interfering, I can guarantee that he won't notice anything before the final moment arrives. But if you guys cause trouble, alright, I got it. Shin Mu frowned. It's simple. Li Zhen is going to die and they won't have time to care about your business. Li Chunfeng glared at him and was about to ask again. But Shin Mu had already waved his hand and disappeared. He stared at the pillar and pondered for a while. Slowly he raised his hand and extinguished the light on the pillar. At the same time, Li Yunxin stood at the corner of the street. He was 120 steps away from the restaurant where Li Chunfeng was staying. He turned into an alley from the main street and disappeared from the sight of the people in the restaurant. Chapter 829. If a Grand Supreme Expert wanted to, they could almost see through everything around them. However, this kind of thing required some effort and Li Yunxin didn't do it often. It was like an ordinary person walking on a bustling street in his world. There were many people walking and talking around him. He could see many colorful sceneries in his eyes. But most of the time he wouldn't take those words and sceneries to heart. He would only listen and look briefly before it slid past his mind. But if he wanted to, he could listen carefully and purposefully and he could hear a lot of information. For example, why the two couples next to him were arguing, what the person on the phone was talking about. What was the situation of the granny picking pears at the fruit stall, and whether the middle-aged woman next to the child was his mother or aunt. However, this was very exhausting. It was the same for Grand Supreme Experts to observe the people and things around them. It wasn't an instinct but a technique that required divine abilities. But tonight Li Yunxin stood at the dark street corner and did it. He observed everything in the Grand Thai restaurant where Li Chunfeng stayed, not letting go of any detail. Then he discovered something strange. He first clearly heard the sound of Li Chunfeng's footsteps. He walked from the second floor to the hall on the first floor. Then he heard the sound of curtains being lifted. He should have entered the back kitchen. He could look. However, Li Chunfeng was in the profound realm and his cultivation was considered high. A profound realm cultivator couldn't stop a Grand Supreme from looking or listening, but he could be alert. Therefore, Li Yunxin chose to listen, which was the least likely to attract attention. After that, there was no sound from the back kitchen. But he already knew that there were 3 people inside. 3 people from the Freemasons. That was the information he had gleaned from the bits and pieces of their conversation. In fact, the 3 of them were already cautious in their words. They never directly mentioned the existence of the Freemasons. However, the information revealed from the words of the 2 chefs and the waiter showed that they were experienced and knowledgeable, far beyond what a normal person could have. They should have been to many places and stayed in at least 6 countries. And from some of their words, there was also disdain for the people of the painting school. It was just a subtle emotion. They had even mentioned the words behind the cloud mountain. Even though he only mentioned it once, he was reminded by the other 2 and they shut their mouths. After Li Chunfeng entered the kitchen, the 4 of them fell silent. The voice became muffled and indistinct, and he could only catch 1 or 2 unimportant words. Actually, if he used his divine powers, he would be able to hear them more clearly. However, Li Yunxin realized that someone had done something. It was a technique that could restrict even a Grand Supreme like him. Li Yunxin was slightly stunned and quickly retracted his divine art. He had been standing at the entrance of the alley with a smooth blue stone behind him. This kind of stone was very common in Twin Tiger City. It was a place where people rested and it was equivalent to the benches on the roadside in his time. He slowly sat down on this rock and could see the corner of Hong Tai Lu. After a moment of silence he said in a low voice, "Li Chunfeng." He should have realized that something was amiss a few days ago or even earlier. From the moment Bai Yanjun showed up until now, he had never had the right to contact the people on the other side. He had thought that was the case, but later he learned that Li Chunfeng could. Even now he had become the savior in their words, but it seemed that he was still excluded. This meant one thing. The people on the other side might have different factions and opinions. Because no matter what they wanted to do, if they were unified, they wouldn't have to use this method to prevent him from getting more information. Was the one who disagreed with them Qining? Li Yunxin sat alone in the night for a quarter of an hour. He carefully thought about what Li Chunfeng had said to him, what Bai Yanjun, Shen Mu and even Qin Zhao had said to him. He gradually realized that he had to fight against himself first. It was a lingering ghost in his mind. This ghost was born from the feelings he had cultivated with Li Chunfeng for more than a decade. This feeling was rotten and stinky. It was deformed and terrifying when it was born. He and Li Chunfeng had created it together. But he didn't realize it at the time. He could even smell something sweet from the stinky smell. It was this smell that blinded his eyes and numbed his rationality. In his own words, this was an emotional hint that lasted for more than a decade. The inertia created by this hint lasted until now. At least it lasted until half an hour ago. His rationality was affected by his emotions, and he lost his vigilance when facing Li Chunfeng. Even if he hated and complained, he couldn't help but find a reason or excuse for that person. This was because of the limitations of his body in this world. He understood many things, but he had to bear the negative effects of those things. But now Li Yunxin felt that he understood what Qin Zhao had said in the afternoon. At the same time he started to think about another question. What was Li Chunfeng's cultivation level? He didn't continue listening because he felt the restriction. But the restriction didn't seem to be from a spell, but some kind of pure power. It was like a person with profound cultivation could hide his aura so that others couldn't see through him. Judging a person's cultivation level through aura was something that could only be roughly estimated. This kind of thing was very similar to the way people in his world judged a person's wealth and social class through their temperament, speech and behavior. People who were sophisticated and experienced were like high-level cultivators in this world. They could easily see the true nature of a person who didn't know how to hide or only knew how to hide. When cultivators occasionally released their spiritual energy, it was like people in his world showing off their savings and real estate. It was obvious at a glance. More often they hid their spiritual energy as if they were following the rules and wouldn't deliberately show off. But they could also see how their aura was when they spoke, whether their spiritual energy flowed smoothly, or whether their physical strength was strong. Judging Li Chunfeng by these standards, he was in the profound realm. It was like two people with similar wealth, vision and knowledge. It was easy to see through each other. But the method just now was probably beyond Li Chunfeng's ability. Another example would be Li Yunxin, a billionaire, trying to acquire a company owned by Li Chunfeng that was only valued at a few billion through the use of tens of billions of funds. But soon he found that the capital that the small company could mobilize was no less than his. So he immediately withdrew his antennae. What realm was Li Chunfeng in? He already knew how the Grand Elder came to be. The so-called Venerable One itself was a passage that connected two worlds. When one cultivated to a certain level, the chaotic energy would connect the two worlds so the channel would be full and become a Grand Elder. The other Grand Elders in this world were connected to the chaos world outside the celestial sphere. In terms of strength they were slightly inferior to him. Strictly speaking, they could even be classified as fake Grand Elders before he appeared. That was why he said he would fight the Golden Rock. He wasn't a brainless boor. Even if he wanted to do whatever he wanted, he would always consider his strength. As for Li Chunfeng, he said that his previous world had been destroyed. The other end of the channel was gone. He shouldn't be able to reach such a realm. If what he said was true. But how could he dare to believe that he might be telling the truth? Somewhere in his heart was annoyed and stagnant. But Li Yunxin told his feelings to slide past that place. He didn't want to touch it. Like a wounded person, he carefully slid his hand over the wound. He knew it was there, but he didn't have the courage, energy, or the need to see it. He sat for a while, raised the corner of his mouth, got up and walked away. In the next 3 days, Li Chunfeng didn't see Li Yunxin. On the 4th night, Li Yunxin appeared in a courtyard in Chengdu. Before that he had stayed on the streets of Chengdu for a long time. He looked at the Taoist temple where the wolf monster used to live in the city, looked at the former moon and Ju and had a meal. The courtyard wasn't big, but it was unimaginably neat and clean in this era. Although it was early spring and the flowers and trees looked lonely, they were dense under the shadow of the moon, which was a unique scenery. Obviously, these things were carefully taken care of. About every quarter of an hour, a team of guards with halberds and swords would silently walk through the courtyard. They all looked capable. But they didn't notice that there was one more person in the courtyard. Li Yunxin passed through the courtyard and came face to face with these guards. Then he walked straight to the door and pushed it open. The people in the room hadn't rested yet. A man in a black robe with gold piercings and an old man standing in the shadows. Hearing the door open, they looked up at the same time. The old man frowned and was about to say something in a low voice, but the man's eyes were wide open. Li, very impressive. Li Yunxin closed the door and looked at him with a smile. Master Ying's attire is a bit like the old Emperor Li. But now your family business is bigger than the old Emperor Li. Seeing his master's reaction and hearing this, the old man immediately shut his mouth. This old official vaguely guessed who the visitor was. Ingjuren opened his mouth and after a while he walked out from behind the table with large strides. But before he could speak, Li Yunxin had already walked to the chair by the window and sat down. He said, "Back in the city of Wei, I said that you would do great things if you followed me. You didn't think it would be so big before. I passed by your place a few days ago and heard that you set up an altar to welcome me. But I was busy at that time and had a lot of things to deal with. And I was afraid that you would ask me for a way to cultivate immortality when I saw you, so I left. I heard that you were very embarrassed." Ingjuren was finally able to speak. He said in a low voice, "You are an immortal, so you will always be busy. I don't care about my face. I am an emperor now, but I am still a martial artist at heart. We martial artists have our own pursuits and broad-mindedness, so we are least afraid of being misunderstood. I used to think that you would always come to see me. Now that you really came, it means that my belief is not wrong." Li Yunxin laughed. "If my worldview could be as self-consistent as yours, it would really save me a lot of trouble." Ingjuren stood in front of him and was silent for a moment. He said, "People in the world are not strong enough. I'm just strong-willed. In this aspect, maybe I am much better than many other cultivators." Li Yunxin smiled knowingly. "You haven't given up yet. Still want to cultivate?" Ingjuren looked at him seriously. "You know that I used to cultivate the 7-kill formula. What I want is to have the desire to kill. If it is so easy to give up, I would have been dead long ago." Li Yunxin stopped laughing and looked at him seriously. "I didn't come here today to argue with you about this issue. If you insist on asking me for the method of cultivation, I will leave immediately." The old Zhongguan knew what kind of person Li Yunxin was. But when he saw the face of this legendary figure who was so powerful that he could overturn rivers and seas with a wave of his hand, he was not worried at all. Because he knew that His Majesty could easily resolve this kind of stalemate. So he heard His Majesty immediately say, "Then forget it. We martial artists pay attention to the determination of the mind. But if we do it knowing that it is impossible, it will become an obsession. If you don't want to cultivate, then don't cultivate." Li Yunxin sighed. "I really don't know who you learned your brilliant theoretical level from. Sit, you are the emperor now, why are you standing and talking? Maybe I have something to ask of you." The Zhongguan in the shadows breathed a sigh of relief. Ingjuren really sat down as he was told. But he just sat on the table. What can you ask of me?" Li Yunxin was silent for a moment and shook his head. "So, I don't want you to cultivate. What's so good about it? I have cultivated since I was a child and I have a father who also cultivates. In the end, I was involved in a bunch of cultivation world matters and the father and son became enemies. For a whole year. It was only a few days ago that we talked things out and realized that these days were all misunderstandings. He has his difficulties and I also have my difficulties. When our difficulties are added together, it becomes a knot in our hearts. Only then did I understand. Living is actually to follow one's heart. In the past he did a lot for me and for the world, but I resented him for it. Until a few days ago I didn't say a word to him. But in fact I really want to say it, but I can't." Ingjuren's eyes were a little blank. After Li Yunxin sighed with emotion, he paused for a while and then said, "This? Why are you telling me this?" Li Yunxin seemed to wake up from a dream. He coughed and looked at the old Zhongguan sternly. "Why don't you let me have a good talk with your Majesty?" Ingjuren immediately said, Leave. The Zhongguan hurriedly excused himself and trotted out of the door. After taking him away for a while, Li Yunxin waved his hand. Thus, the door and windows shone with a misty light, but it quickly disappeared. He looked at Ying Juren and said, "Now let's talk business. I have a favor to ask of you. It's very important and no mistakes are allowed. If you do it to my satisfaction, I'll let you live for another 100 years. If you mess it up, you won't be able to be the emperor anymore. Now think carefully, do you want to hear it or not?" Chapter 830. A joyful expression flashed across Ying Juren's face. But he quickly suppressed this emotion and hesitated for a while. For Black Blade hero Ying, this kind of hesitation was very uncommon. After about a dozen breaths, Ying Juren stood up straight and said, "I want to hear it." Li Yunxin smiled. "Hey. Then let me ask you first. Do you know that the officer next to you is a member of the Freemasonry?" Ying Juren was stunned. "What? Then you don't know." Li Yunxin raised his hand and pointed. "Lu Gongzan stayed here for a long time and clearly understood the people around you. There are Freemasonry people around you and there are also his people. This officer is a spy of the Freemasonry. But after observing him for a while, he felt that this person's nature is not bad. After all, the matter of which force to serve is not something that can be decided by some small fry. He can't refuse whoever comes to him and he can't figure out what those people want him to do. It's understandable that he has no choice but to agree. You don't have to be surprised. It's a convention that there are spies around the emperor." Ying Juren raised his eyebrows and a murderous look appeared on his face. "You want me to, don't misunderstand. I won't kill him." Li Yunxin waved his hand. "I want to use him. Don't alarm him. Also, you have a few painters here, right?" Ying Juren's face was gloomy. "They are Lu Gongzan's disciples. But they only became his disciples for a few months. He chose a few talented and intelligent ones and said that I might be able to use them if I keep them by my side. Oh. Then I can tell you responsibly that these are not spies. There's no need for that. But think about it. Is there anyone that Lu Gongzan likes the most and is the most intelligent? Find me." Ying Juren thought for a moment. "There is one called Wang Wang. Lu Gongzan once said that he... Where is he now? I'm not sure about that. But it should be in the northern part of the city. When it was time to choose a site to build the palace, I went there once. What does it look like? Early 20s. By Jing is it?" Li Yunxin raised his hand to interrupt him and closed his eyes. After 3 breaths of time, a small whirlwind appeared in the room. A figure quickly emerged from the whirlwind, standing on the ground. "Is it him?" "It's him." Ying Juren slightly widened his eyes. She was astonished by Li Yunxin's remarkable ability, and even a little envious. The person on the ground was indeed a young man in his early 20s, and he was indeed fair and clean. He looked weak and delicate and seemed to be a good match for his identity as an artist. However, his eyes were still closed, as if he didn't know that he had been captured by Li Yunxin and was still sleeping soundly. He was almost at the transcendent state. For someone of his age and family background, it was an unbelievably high level. It seemed that Lu Gongzan had made the right choice. He was also a cultivation genius, or else he wouldn't have caught his eye. As for this person's character, Li Yunxin trusted old Lu's judgment. He stared at Wang Wang for a while and began to speak. It seemed like he was talking to himself but also to Ying Juren or this young man. "When I first met Lu Gongzan, we were kidnapped by a group of people and brought to the wild forest near the city of Wei. I don't remember if it was the 6 ghosts in the river or the 7 ghosts who kidnapped us. I don't remember, but later I found out that they were chased by you and had nowhere else to run. So we had a little bit of fate from the beginning. It could be considered as God's will and destiny. When old Lu and I were trapped, I painted a painting called Walking in the Night in Silk Clothes. But my spiritual power was sealed at that time, so old Lu had to do the finishing touch. That was how the painting array was completed." At this point he paused. Ying Juren thought he was going to continue. But Li Yunxin didn't continue. He changed the topic. "Do you know what my father looked like?" Ying Juren was stunned. Li Yunxin got up and walked to the desk. There was a piece of paper on the desk for the emperor to write on. Li Yunxin picked up the brush and started sketching on the Xian paper. "He looked like me," he said as he drew, "but a little older. This is what he looked like." He finished and picked up the paper. It was supposed to be one piece, but with a shake of his hand, dozens of pieces scattered on the desk. Ing Juren looked at Wang, who was still ignorant, and then looked at the drawings. This is, Li Yunxin said seriously, what I want you to do is this. While the two were talking, the official was still waiting outside the door. If it was a minister discussing business with Emperor Rong, he would leave the room and stand on the platform in front of the door. But now that the mysterious Dragon King was in the room and didn't seem to like him, he retreated a little further and stood below the stairs. But he could still hear the voices in the room. After all, this used to be the official office of Qingdu. The house was built early and not often repaired. Even if it was renovated a few days ago, it couldn't isolate all the sounds. But he couldn't hear clearly. He could occasionally hear some words, but he couldn't make out what they meant. The old official listened for a quarter of an hour and finally gave up. He felt that the god inside must have used some method to prevent outsiders from entering. As for whether it was to prevent him, he didn't think so. It was because that god was touched by something and had come to find His Majesty to tell him some heartfelt things. When he got emotional and saw that there was an outsider around, he naturally felt uncomfortable. That was why he scolded him. He breathed a sigh of relief and looked up at the sky. Then he waved to an imperial guard in the distance and told him to wait here. He took a step forward and walked out of the courtyard. He went to the back kitchen and ordered to prepare some snacks. After thinking for a while, he ordered to prepare some meat. He knew that His Majesty was born poor and that even now his taste was a little heavy. In the past, when he served other nobles, his food was light. But even when His Majesty ate supper, he insisted on meat and vegetables. He checked the back kitchen for a while and then slowly walked to the courtyard. From the back kitchen to the courtyard where Emperor Rong's study was located, he had to pass through a small path. The back kitchen was originally a house next to the county government. This path was an alley with high bluestone brick walls on both sides. When he walked into the alley, he saw a person standing in front of him. Because it was night, he couldn't see the person's face clearly. He hesitated for a moment and walked forward. He realized that the person should be a cultivator. It was easy to distinguish cultivators from mortals. If you saw them often. They often didn't care about the weather or the weather. For example, at this time, there was still some snow on the streets of Qingdu, but the person was wearing a thin shirt. He held his head high and chest out, not afraid of the cold. But his face was covered with a cloth to hide his face. The middle-aged official stopped 3 steps in front of him. The person said, "Li Yunxin met Your Majesty?" The middle-aged official didn't say anything. The person smiled. "Why? Back then when you were lying in bed and about to die, we saved you. You said that you would repay us even if you were an ox or a horse. Do you regret it now?" The middle-aged official sighed. He did. What did he say? "It's not important." "Oh, it's up to me whether it's important or not." The person snorted. "Say it word by word." The middle-aged official sighed again. Alas, he didn't want to have anything to do with His Majesty and wanted to be heartless. But later he met his biological father and cleared up the misunderstanding. Maybe because of this he came to talk to His Majesty about the past. I vaguely heard him say something about fate and fate. I think he was just reminiscing about the past. You should know how His Majesty got to where he is today. The person thought for a moment. Nothing else. That's all? Nothing else. The middle-aged official replied. He probably missed his old friend. Humph. The person snorted and was about to leave. The old middle-aged official hurriedly said. Wait. What's wrong? His Majesty is a good man. He's also a good emperor. It's rare to see such a person. The old middle-aged official frowned. Hey guys, he wants to benefit the world. If you guys want to harm him. Ha. The person laughed coldly. We're not interested in the affairs of mortals. With that said, his figure flashed and disappeared. The middle-aged official shook his head and sighed. He then released his hands that were gripping his sleeves tightly behind his back before continuing to walk forward. But just as he reached the courtyard, he knew that something had happened. The Jin Wu guards on night duty rushed to the door with their weapons unsheathed. There were sounds of argument in the study. From afar he could see 2 figures reflected by the candlelight in the room on the window. He could tell at a glance that the one walking back and forth was His Majesty. The other stood by the window and didn't speak. Is he arguing with that god? He was still fine when he left. He hurriedly rushed over and 2 people held him up. What's going on? The middle-aged official lowered his voice and shouted angrily, "What are you guys doing? Go and protect His Majesty." His Majesty he. Just as the Jinwu guard said these few words, they heard Ying Juren shout from the room, "Get away from him! Gao Yuliang, get them out of here! What are you doing? Making fun of me?" The old middle-aged official was stunned. After thinking for a while he shouted in a low voice, "Retreat, retreat! Didn't you hear what His Majesty said?" The Jinwu guards looked at each other. One of the leaders was about to speak, but Ying Juren shouted angrily from the room, "Scram!" Only then did he hurriedly give the order. The group of people hurriedly retreated. The old middle-aged official remained in the courtyard. Then he heard Li Yunxin laugh coldly, "I think you've been an emperor for too long that you've forgotten your surname." He suddenly raised his voice, "You think you're qualified to negotiate with me? You want to cultivate and live forever? I'll call you a ghost cultivator, okay? Go learn from Emperor Qing and Emperor Yu. Go die? If you don't even dare to die, how can you ask for immortality?" Ying Juren immediately shouted, "Today my world is." But the figure in the room suddenly disappeared. A whirlwind suddenly appeared in the sky, roaring as it headed south. The middle-aged official realized that the god had left. He hurriedly pushed the door open and rushed into the room, just in time to see His Majesty pull out the black knife from the wall and cut his own throat. A chill shot up from his tailbone to the top of his skull. He immediately rushed forward, grabbed the back of the knife with both hands, lowered his body and knelt down. "Your Majesty." Seeing him, His Majesty's eyes were wide open, bloodshot, and he shouted, "Scram!" The middle-aged official gritted his teeth and said, "Your Majesty, have you forgotten what you wanted to do? Your Majesty's Black Stockade Fort helped so many poor people. Was it just for immortality? I know that this is a knot in your Majesty's heart. But there's something I haven't asked. Has your Majesty been blinded? Have you forgotten what you really want?" Ying Juren was stunned. His body stood there like a block of wood, his hand holding the knife so tightly that it made a cracking sound. Only then did the middle-aged official dare to slowly pry open his fingers one by one, held the knife in his arms and continued to persuade while kneeling, "Cultivation, your Majesty, cultivation. A day in the mountains, 1,000 years in the world. When the cultivators take a nap, decades will pass in the world. They can live for hundreds or thousands of years, but what's the difference between them and us? They're just living in vain. We mortals are alive every day and we've seen so many good things. Speaking of supernatural power, your Majesty already has supernatural power. With a decree, thousands of soldiers and horses will die for your Majesty. Even cultivators can't do that. Your Majesty, you're now a living god in the world." He persuaded for a full 15 minutes. Only then did Ying Juren's expression become listless. He stepped back disappointedly, holding the table and sitting back on the chair. After a long silence, he reached out to wipe the sweat on his forehead. "But..." He opened his mouth, but his lips were trembling. "But I've already offended him. It can still be remedied, your Majesty." The middle-aged official hurriedly said, "Even an immortal is a human. Everyone has their likes and dislikes. Your Majesty, if you cater to his liking..." Ying Juren shook his head. "It's too late, too late. It was a good thing that he came to see me tonight. He told me about his father, but unfortunately I was blinded by greed." The middle-aged official's eyes lit up, then asked his father to make a fuss. "His father is also a cultivator. He's now the leader of the dragon cult of our Rome kingdom, so worship his father, your Majesty. Be the leader of the sovereign sect. Ask people to build a temple and make a golden body. He saw what you've done, so he must feel your sincerity. He won't be angry forever. You two have some feelings for each other." Ying Juren shook his head and waved his hand. "Alas, forget it, forget it. Go and do it, go and do it. I don't want to think about these things tonight." The middle-aged official sighed and helped him up. Then he said, "Your Majesty, rest assured. I'll go and do it tonight. But your Majesty, what does the father of the sect leader look like? Or is it enough to make a dignified golden body for him?" Ying Juren held his forehead and waved his hand weakly. "Of course his father looks like him. You've seen him before, so make him look older. Go, let me have some time alone." The middle-aged official agreed. He looked at him worriedly a few more times, then pushed the door open and hurried out. Li Yunxin watched all this coldly from high up in the sky. He also saw the man who had stopped the old middle-aged official in the alley leave the city quietly and cast a few talismans. Then he sighed and really headed south. At noon on the fourth day, Li Chunfeng finally entered the dark room of Hongtai Restaurant's back kitchen. He called someone and waited for a quarter of an hour. A quarter of an hour later, a figure in white appeared beside him. Li Chunfeng immediately frowned. I haven't seen him for 4 days. Can you find him even if you have thousands of incarnations? The man stuck his tongue out and rolled his eyes. Find him? Do you think he's still the same as before? He's now the supreme sect. Chapter 831. Li Chunfeng sighed. You should have taught me the method of the incarnation long ago, but you kept pushing it off. That person immediately sneered. Teach you? Hehe, I'm not at ease. You even want to harm your own son. Who else can't you harm? I'm just doing it for the bigger picture. Don't forget, Li Chunfeng pointed to the sky. I'm the one who contacted them multiple times before they temporarily made peace with you. What we want to do cannot be separated from Cloud Mountain. If they are not willing, they will all die here. I know you like Li Yunqing. But think carefully, although he isn't a bad person, his temperament is unstable. Because of their own emotions, it was hard to say what they would do. I'm a villain, but I'm a rational villain. I won't act on impulse and the risk is controllable. Working with a villain like me is much more reassuring than working with him. Moreover, Li Chunfeng sneered. When you killed your brother, the Black Yama King, didn't you think about the fact that you could harm even him? Who else can't you harm? Bai Yanjun narrowed his eyes and stared at him. After a while he said, if it wasn't for that Shenmu who insisted on getting all that messy information and data from you, I would have killed you long ago. Li Chunfeng smiled. It's good that you understand this. You can't live without Shenmu. He's also a wonderful person who doesn't care about good and evil and human nature for the sake of his career. So he can't live without me. He shook his head slightly. If you're not happy, think about it this way. I came from another world. In Shenmu's words, I personally experienced the entire process of the two universes merging and destroying each other. Everything I saw and everything I felt had unparalleled scientific value. With the information I provided, he can uncover many secrets and even find a way to save many worlds. This is the greatest good. In the face of this great good, personal likes and dislikes and personal morals are all insignificant. Only those who can survive have the right to talk about morals. Bai Yanjun frowned and screamed, forget it, forget it. I don't want to listen to your nagging. Say it. What's the situation now? If you can't find Li Yunqing, does that mean something has happened? He saw through your plan, didn't he? I just don't know where he is right now. But I know what he's doing these days. Li Chunfeng sighed. Based on what I know so far, this is a good opportunity to break through his mental defenses. So I should like to know where he is. I ought to speak to him. Break through his heart's defense? Bai Yanjun laughed and narrowed his eyes. Someone can break through his heart's defense. Tell me, what kind of situation is it? Benjun is curious. Li Chunfeng smiled, but his meaning was complicated. He went to see Emperor Rong. It was Emperor Rong whom he had personally nurtured. Said something, mention me. My man on the other side told me that he felt he had really misunderstood me and now regretted it. But you don't know how to tell me about your feelings. Hearing this, Bai Yanjun laughed shrilly. Aha! You believe Li Yunqing's nonsense? Don't you know how much he hated you? Even if he wanted to say this, why did he go to see Emperor Rong? Li Chunfeng looked at him. It's difficult for people like you to understand the subtleties of this world. It's indeed difficult for others to gain his trust, but now it's me. I've been with him for more than 10 years and he can't get rid of me. If you say he hates me, why do you think he treats Lu Gongzan so well? Because that old man takes care of him and treats him well, just like a loving father. How much he hates me, how much he doesn't want to accept the fact that I'm really heartless to him. He will do everything he can to find some evidence, maybe even he doesn't know it himself, to prove that I'm not the person he hates. The most ruthless state for a person is not hate but forgetfulness. As for looking for Emperor Rong, if not him, who should I look for? He doesn't have many friends in the world. Can he talk to the demons in the city of Wei about this kind of relationship between people? That's why I told him not to see Lu Gongzan. There's an empty place in his heart, so he can only look for me. Now he can't talk to me, so he can only talk to Ingjuren. The fact that he went to see Emperor Rong means that he's already in the game. Bai Yanjun sneered. Since you see it so clearly, why don't you act quickly? Li Chunfeng said seriously, that's why I came to you. I've sent Xiexing to Yunshan to modify that thing so that it can launch a thunderous strike. This will take some time, so I have to appease Li Yunxin. You and I have to find him as soon as possible, in case he's out of my sight and remembers something that's not good for us. The White Yama King circled around him and returned to look at him. That's all? Is there anything else you want to ask me? Li Chunfeng smiled. Is there anything else you want to tell me, Yanjun? Humph. Let me remind you. Bai Yanjun raised his hand and pointed to the south. Do you know what Emperor Rong did today? I don't know. Yanjun, please tell me. This morning, Emperor Rong changed into a new robe, set up an altar and went crying. He said that he offended the leader of the dragon cult because of his unreasonable behavior. He also said that at night, the leader of the dragon cult appeared in his dream and told him to build a golden body for his biological father and set up an altar to enjoy the incense of the supreme sect leader. If he did well, he might be forgiven. Emperor Rong really ordered temples to be built in every province, prefecture and prefecture. My guess is that if you had been quick, you would have made several copies of your golden body. Don't you know about this? Li Chunfeng smiled. Li Yunxin talked to him about love, but he asked for immortality from Li Yunxin. My son left in disappointment and anger, and Emperor Rong panicked. It's not surprising that he wanted to use this method to please him. Bai Yanjun laughed loudly, his voice so sharp that it almost pierced the eardrums. Don't play dumb in front of me. You're not an idiot. Don't you think that Li Yunxin and Emperor Rong are putting on a show? I told you to think this way and then attach your spiritual qi to the golden body. You're still a human now. In the future, when you have a dispute, you can ask people to worship your golden body. When the wishes of hundreds of millions of people pour into your body, you'll be dead. Don't forget why Li Yunxin couldn't live and had to take over the dragon's body. Oh, that kind of thing. Li Chunfeng blinked. How do you know that I didn't ask him to do that? Bai Yanjun was stunned. What? A few days ago I drew my own spiritual qi and gave it to him. Li Chunfeng sighed and waved his hand. This is a dose of tiger wolf medicine. It's also to defeat him. Yanjun, you should know that since it's a tiger wolf medicine, it can save people and kill people. If he was the original, he would have believed me. This will make him believe me even more. If he doesn't believe me, I'm not worried. Even if what you said is true, it's not a big deal. Besides, I'm more willing to believe that people are good. My son isn't so vicious. The White Hell Lord stared at him again and again, not knowing what to say to him. He could only laugh strangely and then laugh coldly. He shook his head and pointed at him, then turned and disappeared. Chapter 832. After a while, Li Chunfeng sneered and left the secret room with his hands behind his back. This was one of the Freemasonry's many nodes on Midland. These people, from a rational point of view, they couldn't disagree with his plan, but they always mocked and ridiculed him. Do what you think is right and don't do what you think is wrong. It was such a simple principle. But few people in this world understood it. In this regard, they couldn't compare to his son. They were just a bunch of hypocrites. No wonder the world had become like this because of them. As soon as he returned to the kitchen, the waiter came over and whispered, I found Li Yunxin. Li Chunfeng was relieved to hear this. Where is he? The waiter led him to the main hall. He pointed outside the door. Look over there. He then saw Li Yunxin sitting on the other side of the street where Hong Tai restaurant was located, diagonally across from it. It was a breakfast shop that shouldn't have been opened near Hong Tai restaurant. However, the owner of the shop was the brother-in-law of Hong Tai restaurant's shopkeeper, so the breakfast of some of the restaurant's guests came from this shop. It was just past noon and the shop was about to close. However, Li Yunxin was eating at a table by the street, and the shopkeeper was serving him in the shop. He didn't look unhappy, so he must have earned a lot of money. Li Chunfeng looked at him for a while, then walked out. He walked past 2 carriages and arrived at the other side. He walked a few more steps and entered the shop. He saw that on the table in front of Li Yunxin were fried fruits, sugar cakes, sweet garlic salted pork and half a bowl of seasoned tofu pudding. He sat down opposite Li Yunxin and looked at him with a smile. I heard that you went to see Emperor Rong these days, but it didn't go well. What happened? Li Yunxin snorted and put the spoon into his bowl. I wanted to see an old friend. But it turned out to be boring. Then I remembered that there was an old friend I wanted to see. But I didn't find him. Li Chunfeng smiled. Let me guess. You don't have many friends and you don't have many close friends. So, you want to see Su Yusong? Li Yunxin sighed and picked up the spoon again. He ate in small bites, not to fill his stomach but to savor the taste. While eating he said, "You guessed right." But now he did not call himself Su Yusong. That name had been used by the former fake sage. He only called himself Su Sheng. The last time they parted, his incarnation had already completed the tribulation. There should be another incarnation walking in the world. I thought that now that I was the Grand Supreme I should be able to find him. But I have no clue. Li Chunfeng pondered for a moment. The saints of the past must have had their own unique methods as well. Li Yunxin looked up at him and said, "Yes. So." He looked as if he wanted to say something but hesitated. But after hesitating for a while he smiled and said, "Forget it." Li Chunfeng immediately said, "There's nothing we can't talk about right now. Whatever I can do I will do it for you." Li Yunxin smiled and raised his eyebrows but didn't say anything. He ate a few more mouthfuls before saying, "That's why. Having a solid foundation along the way is very convenient. But my foundation is not solid." "That's it." Li Chunfeng's eyes softened and his smile became warm. Yunshan needs some time to accumulate energy and Xiexing's transformation will be slow. Since there's nothing to do I'll help you. I'll tell you everything I haven't told you before. Li Yunxin smiled faintly. "You don't have to say that anymore." He looked at Li Chunfeng who was stunned for a moment. "Do whatever you can for me no matter how guilty you are and so on. To be honest." He stared at the empty bowl in front of him for a while and shook his head. "You've given me enough." Li Chunfeng's lips suddenly trembled. He took a deep breath and said involuntarily, "Yunxin." Li Yunxin smiled sadly. "You still don't know my previous life, do you? In my previous life I lived a very unreasonable life. I lived with an old man since I was a child." It was still noon when he began to talk about his past without reservation. But when he finished the sun was already setting in the west. The wind was blowing in the street and a few withered twigs and leaves, which had sprouted from under the snow which had melted away a few days before, were tossed to and fro. The pedestrians were afraid of the chill of the early spring dusk, so they wrapped their clothes and hurried away. There were 2 old trees at the corner of the street outside the shop. They hadn't grown luxuriant leaves yet. Contrasted with the sunlight they looked desolate. The shopkeeper of the shop stayed with the 2 people at a distance. He lit a stove with hot water on it. Occasionally he would come to refill the tea and water, or he would listen to orders to buy some snacks from other shops nearby. Although what he heard was far different from what Li Yunxin had said, he gradually realized that these 2 nobles who shouldn't have appeared in his shop seemed to have fallen in love. The slightly older one sighed as he listened. At first he was a little curious but as he listened his expression became solemn. He must have been deeply touched by something. As for the young man his expression didn't change much and he always had a faint smile on his face. But from his years of experience in reading people, the shopkeeper could tell that he was forcing himself to smile. It seemed that he still couldn't let go of what he had said. The shopkeeper was very interested in what they were talking about. However, even though he heard every word he couldn't figure out what they meant. But he didn't care and just watched and busied himself with his own business. He thought that he could have a good sleep tonight and he didn't need to open the shop tomorrow. The young man gave him a gold ingot and he earned back a year's worth of money in one day. When the shopkeeper boiled the 4th pot of water, took his 3rd nap, and woke up to turn on the light, Li Yunxin fiddled with the sunflower seeds on the small plate in front of him and smiled. The feelings of my previous life. In many people's eyes that old man abused me until I grew up. But in my place, I can feel some warmth from those experiences. In this life, after I was born I lived for more than 10 years. Although I resented and hated him after that, to be honest I know I'm already satisfied. You gave me more than that old man ever gave me. Thought forget it. People like you and I. Why are we acting like little girls? Why do we want that so-called perfect selfless feeling? You're not a heartless person. You're just a rational person. When there's a conflict between the two you'll choose rationality. But in a situation like ours, there are too many choices. So when you took Shengguan Yu away at sea I didn't worry about her. I knew you'd take good care of her. At this time, Li Chunfeng was already crying. He wiped his face with his hand and rested his arm on the table in silence for a long time, then he put down his hand and sighed. I didn't know these things before. Otherwise, alas. So you've done enough for me. Li Yunqin smiled. In the past I was willful and in the past you made mistakes. But now, you've forgotten it. Li Chunfeng nodded repeatedly, but he couldn't even say anything. The wind started to blow outside the window. The two talked for a while more, then got up and left the shop. Li Yunqin followed Li Chunfeng back to Hongtai Tower. The sky gradually darkened and the wind became colder. There were few people on the streets and the lights were on. But on the north gate of Shuanghu City, two people stood side by side, watching in the direction of Hongtai Tower. In fact, their gazes had never left the shop earlier. Really, they've met their match. The long-tongued man in white was full of emotions. Exciting, exciting. The long-tongued man in black snorted. As expected of father and son. Hee. If I'm not busy, I'd really like to stay here and watch the show for a few days. Watching these two with ulterior motives play the role of a loving father and a filial son. It's more interesting than anything else. The Black Llama King snorted again. Do you still want to slack off? After faking your death, I've been busy all this time and now you want to watch the show. Be careful that Li Chunfeng doesn't notice and get suspicious. He's even more cunning than Li Yunqin. All right, I'm just lamenting. Bai Yanjun laughed. Let's go. Let's get back to work. But let's make this clear. If we meet Su Yusong again, I'll talk to him. We don't have much time left, don't ruin things. The Black Llama King snorted. So the two of them rose with the wind, turning into smoke and dispersing. Then came 4 days of extremely ordinary life. In the eyes of ordinary people, it should have been a very warm time. Li Yunqin stayed in Hongtai Tower, asking Li Chunfeng many questions about the painting Dao. He had figured out some things by himself in this 1 year, while others could only be understood after some guidance. After a year he started teaching again, but it felt like thousands of years had passed. Li Chunfeng told him everything he knew without holding anything back. He really did impart everything he had learned in his lifetime, not concealing anything at all. However, his cultivation in the painting Dao was something that Li Yunqin could only look up to a year ago. After a year he gradually felt that his strength was not enough. After only 4 days he had nothing left to teach. From the 5th day onward the lessons ended and it became a discussion between the two of them. In these days spring returned and the weather warmed up. The friendship between the two gradually grew, as if they had returned to the time when they lived deep in the mountains. On the 7th day, Li Chunfeng put down his brush and shook his head with a smile. Yunexin, I have nothing left to teach you. From now on the painting Dao has nowhere to go. It's all steep mountains waiting for you to open up. Today you've truly become a grandmaster of the painting Dao. Li Yunqin smiled as well. The two of them were sitting in a guest room on the 4th floor of Hongtai Tower. Sunlight shone in through the window and fell on the paper on the table. He stared at the dazzling white paper under the sunlight and raised his hand. Even if I'm a grandmaster, I'm only a grandmaster on land. The other grandmaster is over there. I've been busy these days so I haven't thought about these things. But now that you've taught me these things, I'm experiencing the feeling of the past again. In the past you taught me from nothing so I felt fresh every day. I woke up when the sky brightened. I wanted to learn something fun today. But I had to pretend to be a sleepy kid and close my eyes for a long time. You don't know how anxious I was. Li Chunfeng laughed out loud. After laughing there was a moment of silence. Li Yunqin asked, "What are you thinking about?" "How about?" Li Chunfeng thought for a moment and looked up at him. "If you really want to learn more, I can find Qinzhao again." "Really?" Li Yunqin exclaimed, his eyes filled with surprise. "Can I do it now?" Li Chunfeng hesitated again. "Yes. Of course. I've told you to learn and ask everything you want to learn." Chapter 833. With that he stood up and said to Li Yunqin, "I'll take you to a place. Follow me." But Li Yunqin frowned in confusion. "See Qinzhao? She's in Midland?" Li Chunfeng smiled. "No, but almost. More or less." He went downstairs with Li Yunqin following behind him. They passed the 2nd floor, the lobby on the 1st floor and went straight to the kitchen. There was a chef in the kitchen. A smile appeared on his face when he saw Li Chunfeng coming in through the curtain. But when he saw Li Yunqin walk in, his smile disappeared and he widened his eyes. Li Chunfeng stopped before the chopping board and said to the chef, "Go out. There's nothing else for you." The man blinked his eyes and slowly moved away. Then Li Chunfeng moved the chopping board away, revealing the secret passage below. This Hongtai Tower used to be a Freemasonry base. Li Chunfeng pointed downwards. The wandering souls you've seen in the past were created on Cloud Mountain. The more powerful ones and the ones with Daoist names. But there are also some inconspicuous ones that were created by the various bases scattered across Midland. Come with me. He walked into the secret passage first. Li Yunxin frowned slightly and followed. Even though he was mentally prepared, Li Yunxin still gasped when he saw the things in the secret room. It wasn't because Li Chunfeng had hidden such a secret, but because the things here clearly didn't belong to this world. He'd interacted with the wandering souls of the Freemasonry before and felt that they were different and had a different view of this world. But when he saw the equipment that looked like Dragon Island, he finally realized what kind of power they had. If they used this power properly, he wouldn't have to do anything today. But the elders on Cloud Mountain were probably afraid that the natives of the Freemasonry really knew how to use them, so they carefully and strictly limited the information they could know. They were practically begging for food with a treasure bowl. Li Chunfeng stood before the jade-like pillar and turned to Li Yunxin. I'm contacting the people over there through this. If you want to see Qianzhao, I have to tell her first. Then he turned around, raised his hand and tapped a few times on the pillar. Li Yunxin took in every detail of Li Chunfeng's movements. He realized that what happened a few nights ago seemed to be related to this secret chamber. Li Chunfeng had gone into the kitchen and disappeared. Even with his Taishang abilities, he could not figure out what they were saying or doing. Now it seemed that the problem was with this secret room. With the technology of the people of this world in the past, it was not strange for them to be able to do this. You brought me here to see this thing. Li Yunxin pretended to be curious and amazed as he slowly walked around the room and looked around. He didn't know how to behave. If it were anyone else, he could have easily dealt with them, but this was Li Chunfeng. This person's meticulousness was not inferior to his own, and his experiences were also very similar. He had to control his emotions and reactions appropriately so that the other party wouldn't become suspicious. Thus, after a few glances, he stood still and became silent. Silence could explain many things and give the other party time and space to fill in the blanks. Then he just had to go with the flow. A window floated on the pillar in front of Li Chunfeng. He said to the window in a low voice, I have something urgent to talk to Qianzhao about. Li Yunxin is beside me, we have something to ask her. After saying this, he also turned around and looked at Li Yunxin in silence. The silence between the two lasted about 3 or 4 breaths. Seeing that Li Yunxin did not say anything, Li Chunfeng smiled and spread his hands. See, I'm not holding back anymore. In the future, if you want to see Qianzhao or the people over there, you can also come here. Li Yunxin sighed softly and only said, sigh. He slowly walked to the wall and reached out to touch the smooth wall, as if he had understood something. What exactly was Li Chunfeng doing? He had done this in the past, to tell some of his trump cards and gain the other party's trust. But not as ruthlessly as Li Chunfeng. Li Chunfeng had brought him to this place and given him the ability to communicate with the people over there. Was he planning to be a lone wolf and do everything by himself? Under the premise that Li Chunfeng was indeed planning to cause trouble. But now he had already solved all his previous misunderstandings about Li Chunfeng. When he saw Li Chunfeng go into the kitchen at the corner of the street, he had thought that Li Chunfeng was doing something shady. But now he knew that Li Chunfeng was communicating with the people underground here. This was not a reason for suspicion. Maybe they really had something serious to talk about. But Li Yunxin trusted his instincts. Once he got rid of those paranoid and irrational emotions, he realized that his instincts were telling him that Li Chunfeng was extremely dangerous. Li Chunfeng must be planning something. As these thoughts spun in his mind, Li Yunxin turned around and smiled. I used to wonder if there was something wrong with you always looking for them on my behalf. Now it seems that I was being paranoid. But don't blame me, I learned all my cautiousness from you. You've taught me for more than 10 years. I can't just get over it in one go. I've taught you everything I know. Li Chunfeng seemed to be in a good mood. He laughed. Later, when you meet the art saint and ask her some questions, she probably has nothing to teach you. Next. If you return to your previous world, what are you going to do? You have to know that although this world is mysterious, you're already at the top. Moreover, we're trapped in such a small world. If we go back to your world, we can go anywhere we want. Over there, you must have a lot of things to take care of. This sounded like a casual chat between the two of them, who had eased up while waiting for the art saint's reply. However, Li Yunxin knew that if what she guessed was true, then none of Li Chuanfeng's words would be nonsense. Every sentence should have a clear purpose, and he wanted to get something. Without batting an eyelid, he smiled and said, "There's nothing left to be done on the other side. But if I go back, there will be." As he said this, he glanced towards the column. He had a deduction in his mind. The last time Chen Ying came to see him, she used unconventional methods. Her explanation was that she didn't want the people over there to hear what Li Yunxin said in her diary. But later she said something ambiguous and seemed to be a warning. It was those words that made Li Yunxin vigilant, completely freeing himself from the feelings he had cultivated with Li Chunfeng for more than 10 years. If she really said those words to warn him, this time she should show up quickly. She wouldn't give Li Chunfeng a chance to harm him or get any useful information from him. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, the light on the pillar surged. Qin Zhao's appearance appeared. Li Chunfeng stood with his back to the pillar while Li Yunxin faced the pillar. Thus he caught a fleeting hint of surprise in Qin Zhao's eyes. He was sure that there was some wariness in that surprise, the moment she realized that he was in the room besides Li Chunfeng. When Li Chunfeng turned around, the expression on Qin Zhao's face had returned to normal. She looked at Li Chunfeng and then at Li Yunxin, smiling. "You finally see my appearance." Li Yunxin smiled back. "I heard that evil Lord Qingshui looks like you. Now that I see you, I know it's not just a rumor. But I'm a little different from what I imagined. I thought I'd be more youthful, but..." He pondered for a while. "Cool. But then I thought the two sages of Yunshan also said that the art saint was unparalleled in beauty, so it's true." Li Chunfeng smiled. "You two hit it off well. Master, I called you here because I have something to ask you." Qin Ying squinted at him. Her obviously cold attitude was beyond Li Yunxin's expectations. But soon he realized that this was probably Qin Zhao's style. She never seemed to be the kind of person who liked to be polite or perfunctory. She clearly didn't like Li Chunfeng. And she probably didn't like him anyway, so there was nothing to hide now. But Li Chunfeng didn't mind. He still smiled respectfully. "I've been discussing Dharma with Yun Xian these days. He's learning fast. I have nothing to teach him. I can't answer a few questions, but I think Master can. I owe him a lot in the past. I think this time, I have to make it up to him. That's why you're here." Qin Zhao still didn't care about him. She only looked at Li Yunxin. "Don't you have my jade slip? I've recorded all my experiences in it. What else do you not understand? I came from an unorthodox background." Li Yunxin sighed. "There are too many things in your background that can be easily obtained. But before these days I didn't even understand the process. But this time the jade slip doesn't have what I want to ask either. It's something only you know." Qin Ying rolled her eyes. He seemed to be interested. She smiled. "Only I know? I don't even know what only I know. Tell me." Then she looked at Li Chunfeng. "You're interested in this too?" She was probably asking him to leave. But Li Yunxin immediately said, "We've indeed discussed a lot these days. He wants to hear it too." Qin Ying pouted. "Go ahead." Li Yunxin cupped his hands at her and said, "I had too many questions in the past. Now I've solved most of them bit by bit, but there are still a few things in my heart. If I don't understand them, it'll be very uncomfortable. It's related to painting, but it's also related to gossip. I heard that 500 years ago Yi Di went to the mountains to play. He saw the portrait of a beautiful woman in a temple and spoke rudely. So there was a rainstorm and Yi Di became a drowning country. Then the country was overturned. Was that portrait yours? Did you make the rain too?" Li Chunfeng and Qin Zhao were both stunned. They didn't expect him to say that the question was related to gossip. Turned out to be the truth. Qin Zhao laughed. "This has nothing to do with me. It's like it's mine, but the rain is clear water. She wants to take revenge for me. I thought about it and didn't think it was a big deal, so I didn't stop her." "Oh, did she tell you that it's related to the fight with the Freemasonry? He lied to you?" Li Yunxin was stunned and then laughed. "I see. Then there's another question. You drew Shinryu and made Dragon Sun. In the end, whether it's Shinryu, Dragon Sun, or people like Clearwater who gathered souls for Shinryu, they can all summon clouds and rain. How did you do it? What I'm saying is, did you give them this ability at the same time you drew it? I've thought about this for a long time, including the abilities of the Pitfall Mountain's Evil King and the Seven Sons. But I didn't do it well. For example, I wanted to draw a little fireman for fun. When it appears, it should be able to play with fire. But in reality, it doesn't have this ability. Is there something wrong with my operation? Li Chunfeng didn't say anything. He listened carefully to every word Li Yunxin and Chen Zhao said. But his expression didn't change. Chen Zhao blinked and thought. How you want to ask that? You're thinking in the wrong direction. I didn't give them this ability. It's related to where they came from. Or, you've drawn a supreme being yourself. You should know where they came from, right? Chen Zhao pointed at Li Yunxin. The one in your ear. These things were summoned from our original world. The foundation of the summoning is the faith and wishes of the people in that world. For example, Shinryu. The people in my world believe that dragons can summon clouds and rain. So I summoned it here. The faith and wishes of the people gave it this attribute. If the people in my world believe that dragons can control fire, then I summoned a fire dragon here. Do you understand? I didn't give them this ability. Came from where they came from. Li Yunxin frowned and thought for a while. Then he said in realization, I see. Whatever the people from where they came from, they really have the attribute when they come here. So, the Ghost Emperor Li is like that too? After he died, he became a Ghost Emperor because of the people's wishes. But in the people's hearts, the Emperor should be someone who protects the country and expands the territory. So after Emperor Li became a Ghost Emperor, he kept building a Ghost Kingdom on the ground. You think he'll do that because of the faith and wishes? Yes. Chen Zhao looked at him. It's not complicated. Li Yunxin was silent for a while. Then he said, then, is there any way to change this attribute? I mean, for example, when you draw Shinryu, is there any way to erase its attribute and add something else, like making it a fire dragon? Chen Zhao was stunned. But why would I do that? Li Yunxin smiled. I'm just asking. I just thought of this and found it interesting. For example, in my original world, there's a legendary character called Superman. Very strong. If I can make him, he'll definitely be a powerful Grand Emperor. How strong is that guy? He can run into the sun and bathe. When I was young, I always envied this and wanted to do it. If his clothes are dirty, he can burn them. There's no need to wash them. If he's not seen by others, he can send it in and burn it to ashes in the blink of an eye. If I can draw him and make him the Rock King, things will be easy. But the problem is that he's too righteous. If I can make him as bad as me, it'll be good. Huh, you're saying that you're bad? I don't think you're a good person either. Qin Ying smiled and then said seriously, don't count on it. When I drew Grand Shinryu and you drew Grand Monkey King, they were both very powerful. They needed to use a lot of spiritual qi. Now, if there's such a big movement, Golden Rock will notice immediately. It's not like I'm drawing some small fish. It'll be even more difficult then. Fine. Li Yunxin sighed. Pretend I didn't say anything. You don't know what to do either. Only then did Li Chuanfeng's expression change slightly. He exhaled softly and glanced at Li Yunxin. Chapter 834. Li Yunxin said, then I don't have anything else to ask. Go do what you need to do. The smile on Chen Zhao's face disappeared immediately. She glared at Li Yunxin. Are you ordering me around? Li Yunxin raised his hand hurriedly. Don't misunderstand. I just don't want to waste your time. You've already talked so much with me. Li Chunfeng laughed and tried to smooth things over. Master, please don't take it to heart. He's just like that. He's a straightforward person, but there's nothing. Before he could finish speaking for Li Yunxin, Qin Ying snorted again and disappeared. Li Yunxin sighed. You're right. We didn't talk much last time, so I couldn't tell. Now I understand. The speed at which you turn hostile is indeed worthy of being called temperamental. Li Chunfeng smiled bitterly. She's the leader of the painting school. I'm her disciple and you're her grand disciple. She's naturally unhappy that you kicked her out after asking her questions. But since she left so quickly, she probably doesn't hate you. How about you? Have you asked everything you wanted to ask? Yes. Li Yunxin smiled. I have no regrets. Li Chunfeng nodded. It's good. I'll get someone to prepare some food and wine. Yun Shan should have already made the necessary preparations. We'll rest for a day. The day after tomorrow we'll go to the Mocking Palace. Okay. Then let's get drunk tonight. Li Chunfeng stared at him. Maybe this will be our last happy day. So, the banquet lasted from the evening until the sky started to brighten. There were only 2 people at the banquet, but the laughter never stopped. When the sky was dyed red, Li Yunxin left the hall on the second floor and returned to his bedroom on the third floor. Li Chunfeng stayed in the hall. He stood up and walked to the window. Holding the railing, he looked at the rising sun. After a while he felt a cold wind behind him. Without turning around, he whispered, "You know we met with Qin Zhao again last night?" Bai Yanjun, who had appeared behind him, walked to his side and said, "I came to see you because I knew. You dined with him all night. You are very self-possessed. Li Yunxin won't meet him for no reason. You're not smart." Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Li Chunfeng smiled and narrowed his eyes. The early spring morning wind blew on his face, sweeping away the last bit of tipsiness. "I must find out whether he suspects anything, whether he has made up his mind to deal with me. After what happened last night, I've already understood half of it." Bai Yanjun was impatient. "If you have something to say it quickly. I need your confirmation so that I can go back and prepare a way to remedy the situation should there be a change in the plan." "Remedy? There's no need for that." Li Chunfeng turned to look at him. "You should know that I don't completely trust those people on your side. If something really goes wrong, I can deal with it myself. If I use you to remedy the situation, who knows whether I'll be the one being saved or Li Yunxin." Bai Yanjun glared at him. That's the kind of person I am. And because I'm the kind of person, I can see what Li Yunxin is thinking. He is indeed suspecting me now." Li Chunfeng stretched. "I'm not surprised. Perhaps it could be said that things had progressed very smoothly for them to reach this point. I would be disappointed in someone like him if he completely trusts me now. Do you know what he said to Qin Zhao last night?" Without waiting for White Hell Lord's reply, he repeated their conversation from the previous night without missing a single word. Li Chunfeng let Bai Yanjun think for a while, then raised 2 fingers. "In order to deal with me, my son has used a plan within a plan, at least 2 diversionary tactics. I took a risk and gave him my soul formation, so he went to the Rong Kingdom to talk to Emperor Rong. The 2 of them pretended to part on bad terms, but they secretly set up a trap in the Rong Kingdom. They made a golden statue of me so that many people would know my name. Now that Emperor Rong's army is unparalleled in conquering cities, Emperor Rong has also become a hero in the hearts of the people. Once his decree is spread, the officials and soldiers under his command will put their lives on the line, and it won't be difficult for hundreds of millions of people to worship me. When that time comes, the power of faith will rush into my body and my snow mountain and ocean of chi will collapse. It's a good plan." He sighed. "But it won't work on me." He must have known it himself, so it must have been a camouflage of his own, to make me take it lightly. What he really wants to do is to get my soul. He said so much to Qin Zhao last night, and every word made my imagination run wild. But I feel that the last question is the main point. At the end of the day, he only wants to ask one question. Can I change the appearance of the soul when I draw it and make it become another person? Yanjun, tell me, who is he referring to? Bai Yanjun blinked. I think so. Li Chunfeng stared at the rising sun and let out a long breath. My son is about to move me. He actually asked about this. I guess he wanted to draw a picture of a father who truly loved him. This kind of thing. If he were in my position now, he would definitely do the same as me. I had no choice. Did I really want to hurt him? Bai Yanjun raised his hand. You should stop, Li Chunfeng. If I still eat and drink, I would have vomited last night's dinner. I came here to tell you that if you can guarantee that nothing goes wrong, you better not let him see Qin Zhao again. Do you know how much Qin Zhao hates you? You've really annoyed her by hanging around in front of her. She's always fearless when she throws a tantrum. Be careful that she tells everything to Li Yunxin, and we won't be able to do anything. Li Chunfeng smiled carelessly. After last night, I know that she won't. Li Yunxin asked her if there's a way to change the appearance of the soul. She and I both know that there is. But she didn't tell Li Yunxin. So, although she doesn't like me and is willful, she still understands the big picture. I'm relieved that she's there. As for you, don't see Li Yunxin in the near future. Be careful that he doesn't notice anything. Bai Yanjun sneered. Do you think I'm inferior to you because you're omniscient and omnipotent? Then do you know that Bai Yunxin got into trouble with Jinpeng? Li Chunfeng was stunned. Trouble? What happened to her? Bai Yanjun walked back and forth in the hall proudly. After whetting Li Chunfeng's appetite, he said leisurely, You're also involved in this matter. You told her that Li Yunxin wanted to marry her, but Li Yunxin rejected her in person. That which used to go to Yunshan for the feather robe. How could she swallow it so easily? She secretly kidnapped Dragon Fifth and Lu Jun and ran away. Li Chunfeng stared at him. Why did she kidnap Lu Jun when Li Yunxin rejected her? Bai Yanjun sneered. You claim that you can read people's minds. Why don't you think about it yourself? Li Chunfeng's face was gloomy. After thinking for a moment he said, to save Lu Gongzan and Dragon Ninth so that he can change his mind. Wrong. If she can really do that, why doesn't Li Yunxin want her? She kidnapped Lu Jun and forced him to ask the ninth young master to show up. She wants to marry the ninth young master to anger Li Yunxin. Nonsense. Li Chunfeng shouted in a low voice. You'll ruin my plan. Bai Yanjun smiled. You can't control her. Li Chunfeng patted the railing. Pacing back and forth on the stage he said in a low voice, this matter can't be hidden. Li Yunxin has his own information channel. This kind of thing. Is it big that Bai Yunxin made it? Hey, it's more than big. That girl spread the word that she will ask Li Yunxin to attend her and Dragon Ninth's wedding banquet before sending Lu Gongzan back. Otherwise she will ask Dragon Ninth to occupy Lu Jun's body and refine Lu Gongzan as well. In my opinion she can totally do that. Her realm is higher than Lu Jun's and she is the apple of Golden Rock's eye, so she has more treasures. After Lu Jun was captured by Golden Rock, he was restrained in order to prevent him from escaping. Now that he is in Bai Yunxin's hands she can do whatever she wants to him. Li Chunfeng was stunned. But why didn't I know about this? What happened just now? No matter how well informed your people are, can they be more informed than me? The earliest your people will send the news here is tonight. If you don't believe me, just ask them yourself. All right. I still have other things to do. Think about it carefully. When Bai Yanjun disappeared, Li Chunfeng immediately took out the talisman. He closed his eyes and listened carefully for a moment. Finally he opened his eyes and sighed bitterly. Meddlesome. Then he flicked his sleeves and went up to the third floor. He knocked on Li Yunxin's door 3 times and pushed it open. The haze on his face had long been swept away, replaced by joy and relief. Yunxin, I have news. It's good and bad. You should know before you leave. Li Yunxin sat in front of the table and put down his pen. What news? Bai Yunxin took Lu Jun from the Mocking Heaven's palace. Now Lu Gongzan and the ninth young master are out of Golden Rock's control. Li Chunfeng looked at him and hesitated for a while. But she didn't do it to save them. She did it to vent her anger. Li Yunxin stood up. What happened? Vent what anger? Without waiting for Li Chunfeng to speak he also took out a talisman. A light shadow appeared in the air and turned into a human figure. Li Yunxin shouted, did something happen to the Mocking Heaven's palace? The figure was blurry and flashing and the voice was faint. But both of them heard clearly that he said, Master, I just learned about it. It said that Bai Yunxin took her away. Li Yunxin was already impatient to listen to him. He waved his hand to disperse the light shadow and looked at Li Chunfeng. She wants to kill people? Kind of. Not really. Li Chunfeng put his hand on his shoulder. Don't worry. Listen to me. You refused the marriage with Bai Yunxin, so the girl got angry. She went back to the Mocking Heaven's palace and took Lu Jun away when Golden Rock was not paying attention. Then she forced him to call the ninth young master. Then she said that she wanted to marry the ninth young master and wanted you to attend the ceremony. If you didn't go she would help Lu Jun to refine Lu Gongzan. But I didn't expect that she would do such a thing. Humph. It's not strange at all. Li Yunxin's face was so gloomy. He is a demon. Demons have an unstable temperament. Even in the past when we were on good terms he would kill an entire street of people if he wanted to in a busy city. When did her temperament change? I've said it before, she only loves herself. As for the ninth young master. Humph. She used to chase after little Nine. She said she wanted to eat him but he didn't. He was just playing with him. It's not surprising that she chose him. She found a pet who was afraid of her and listened to her. In fact she was just playing with him. Yunxin, calm down. Li Chunfeng put his hands behind his back and paced around the room. He turned around and said, since it's like this, let's do it this way. I know that you value Lu Gongzan and the ninth young master. You must want to save them first. Of course. Then let's do it this way. Li Chunfeng said in a low voice. First, I can't persuade you on this matter. Second, if Golden Rock wants to find Lu Jun, it won't be difficult for him. Maybe this matter will be settled in the afternoon. But if the Mocking Heavens Palace still doesn't move tomorrow, there's another possibility. It may be Golden Rock's trap. In this way you have no choice but to see Bai Yunqin. The father and daughter are in cahoots, or the girl doesn't know about it. They're waiting for you to walk into the trap. But no matter which one it is, it doesn't conflict with our original plan. We're going to find him. We'll set off now and find out where Bai Yunqin is. Li Yunqin was silent for a while and said, "Thank you. There's no need for thanks between us." Li Chunfeng smiled. Chapter 835. Wherever Rong Jun's army went, almost no one could stop him. Most of the former Li Kingdom, Yi Kingdom and Qin Kingdom's territories had been conquered. Further west, the flames of war burned all the way to the Tocharian Kingdom. However, there was a kingdom within a kingdom in the current Rong Kingdom's territory. This kingdom used to be the Wu Kingdom and it was still the Wu Kingdom now. However, it was called the Wu Kingdom even earlier. This was because there was a huge parasol tree on the Xianxia cliff in the kingdom. It was also because of this tree that the kingdom had not been destroyed yet. The area within a radius of 1,000 miles around the giant parasol tree was a vast plain shrouded in a dense fog. Once Rong Jun attacked, the Wu Kingdom's royal family would lead their army to retreat into this dense forest. If Rong Jun pursued them, they would lose their way in the fog and the 10,000 soldiers would have to go around for more than a month to get out. If they did not pursue them, the Wu Kingdom's army would jump out of the forest to harass them, and it would be impossible to guard against them. The dense forest was vast and rich in resources, making it a good place to defend. As such, although the Wu Kingdom had shrunk, it still stood tall. When Rong Jun's guerrilla military lieutenant Hanzhua and the military magician Yan Shiba finally arrived at the Tiansha cliff after 3 days of arduous journey, they finally saw the huge divine parasol tree for the first time. They initially thought it was a towering tree, but now they realized it was more like a mountain. The Tiansha cliff was a tall mountain protruding from the dense forest, and at the top of the mountain, the huge parasol tree was almost as thick as the mountain. If one wanted to see the tree, they would have to raise their necks to look at the sky. Only then would they be able to see the huge tree that was like a pillar supporting the heavens. At a very high altitude, lingering fog gathered and they could no longer see what it looked like above. "Why is it so big?" Hanzhua widened his eyes and wiped away the sweat on his face. "I couldn't see it when I was 1.5 kilometers away." A smoke screen. Yan Shiba looked at the lantern in his hand. They relied on this treasure to break through the dense fog in the forest and arrive at the Tiansha cliff on the 3rd evening. However, the candle flame in the lantern was about to be extinguished, which meant that the spiritual power inside was about to be burned out. He stopped walking. "We can't go any further tonight. Once the guiding light went out, they might have to take a detour. It's getting late, let's rest for the night." Hanzhua frowned. "Priest Su said that the Dragon King left 4 days ago, but we still haven't gotten any information today. Taoist Master Su told us to find the place where Bai Yunqin lives in 5 days. If we rest tonight, we may not be able to report to Taoist Master Su. We will also delay the Dragon King's plan." Yan Shiba laughed. "I say, buddy, what kind of people do you think I am? They were just small fries. Even Taoist Priest Su, Taoist Priest Su's master, Taoist Priest Su's master's master may not have seen our Dragon King with their own eyes. Just do what you're told. Why risk your life? Besides, well, in the light of our friendship, I will lay down my life with you. I can't help it. The lantern in my hand is a spiritual item that already has a spirit." In other words, it was about to become a spirit. "Her spiritual aura has been exhausted, so I can't use my divine ability no matter how hard I try. If we really die after wandering around for a night, we will be delaying the Dragon King and Taoist Master Su's plan. Do you think I'm right?" Hanzhua propped the sheathed long saber on the ground and raised his hand to kill 2 mosquitoes on his face. He then looked up at the huge parasol tree that seemed like it could fall on them at any time. The sky gradually turned fiery red. He sighed. "You're right. I was too impatient. Then let's rest for the night." "That's right." Yan Shiba happily snorted twice and threw down the luggage on his back. He took out the saber from his waist and cut off the wild grass around him, spreading it on the ground. He then sprinkled some snake and insect powder on the outside before taking out a small cauldron from his sleeve. With a wave of his palm energy, the small cauldron became bigger with a buzzing sound and landed in the middle of the grass mat. It contained nothing but a ball of fire. As the fire burned fiercely, the forest became darker. In a short while, the area behind the two of them was swallowed by darkness. Only the grass mat still had a warm yellow light. Hanzhua sat down next to the fire and watched Xianxia snort contentedly as he prepared food. Xianxia was tall and sturdy. When he entered the forest this time, he carried a large bag on his back. This bag was filled with nothing but food. He took out 4 oily roasted chickens, skewered them with a stick and placed them next to the fire to roast. He also took out some dried meat and pickled goods and laid them out. Those who didn't know the inside story would think that the two of them were traveling together. Hanzhua had long been used to this. He also knew that the habits of a demon immortal were different from people like him, so he didn't say anything. When Xianxia finished, he turned his face to look at the huge tree through the gaps in the forest and said, "Actually, I've seen the Dragon King before." Xianxia laughed. "In your dreams. Last year at Manwan Mountain." Hanzhua picked up a stalk of grass and held it in his mouth. "You know, I was a surrendered general. I used to be a citizen of the Qin Kingdom. Last winter, a group of people escorting red soil passed through Manwan Mountain and encountered monsters. In the end, we also met the Dragon King. Later, when we arrived at the Allied camp, we saw the Dragon King and a woman called Jin Guangzi fighting. We all ran away. You should know about this, right?" Xianxia looked at him in surprise. "I know about this, but last year at Manwan Mountain? Weren't you a soldier last year? How did you become a deputy general? Before you surrendered, you were a deputy general, right?" Hanzhua waved his hand. "Many people died, but I was lucky. Our platoon leader died and I was the only one left. I gathered some of the remaining soldiers and promoted them to platoon leader. Later, the brigade commander died and I was the only one left. I gathered some of the remaining soldiers and promoted them to brigade commander. Later, the commander knew about me and said that I was a lucky general, so he made me the leader of the bodyguards. In the end, during the battle at Wangshan Beach, the commander died again. No one dared to take me, so he sent me to be a deputy general to transport grain." Xianxia slapped his thigh. "Damn, I finally know how our General Lu died a few days ago." Hanzhua hurriedly waved his hand. "It has nothing to do with me. Don't talk nonsense when you go back." Xianxia laughed. He took a roast chicken from a branch and chewed it without tearing it. Hanzhua also tore a chicken leg and ate it slowly. Halfway through, he narrowed his eyes and sighed. "When we transported red soil to Tongtian Swamp, I was happy at first. I felt that after so many years of peace, there were some new things to do. Who would have thought that the world would be in chaos? Now I only hope that the Rhone Kingdom or other countries will quickly calm the world. The taste of chaos is not good and I don't know when I will lose my life. If I had the magical power of the Dragon King, I would have," Xianxia hurriedly said. "Shh, don't say this. That Dragon King is said to be a Grand Supreme, a celestial being. If you say bad things about him, be careful that he hears it from thousands of miles away. He will come back and make trouble for you." Hanzhua curled his lips and smiled. "I told you that you haven't seen the Dragon King. I saw him that night just like now. We were sitting around the fire. It was night when the Dragon King appeared." As he said this, he suddenly stopped talking and widened his eyes. Seeing his expression, Xianxia immediately threw away the roast chicken and raised his hand to throw a small flying sword behind him. At the same time, he jumped up and turned around shouting, "Who?" But he was also stunned and couldn't speak. There was a man standing under the giant tree behind him. He used 2 fingers to catch the flying sword that he had thrown out. Seeing the two of them, he smiled and threw the flying sword back. At this time, another man came out of the forest behind him. Both Hanzhua and Xianxia knew the appearance of the man in white who caught the flying sword. The middle-aged man behind him also looked like him. This was Dragon King? Hanzhua said as if he was sleepwalking. Li Yunxin smiled and walked over. He looked at Hanzhua and said, "Yes. You were indeed there at Sweeping Mountain. I have an impression of you." He walked to the fire and sat down. He looked at Xianxia up and down. "You can refine flying swords. Are you practicing magic?" It was not until the other man also walked to the Dragon King's side and sat down that Hanzhua and Xianxia jumped up again, took 2 steps back and bowed to the Dragon King in fear and trepidation. "I'm a disciple of the divine dragon cult Hanzhua/Xianxia. Greetings to the President/Divine Dragon Cult Master. Li Yunxin heard this and laughed. He turned to Li Chunfeng and said seriously, "You see, I am also a young man with a slash." Li Chunfeng also laughed. "What kind of story is this from your world?" Li Yunxin just smiled and didn't explain. He turned to the two of them and said, "You two have worked hard. Let's go back after a night's rest." The two of them were stunned. They looked at each other and Hanjua said, "Yes. Dragon King, we are here to explore the way. Now, thanks to you too." Li Yunxin said gently, "Otherwise we wouldn't have found this place so quickly. You two have done a good job. Go back." Then he looked at the lantern left on the ground by Yen Shiba. "Your little lantern is a treasure. Take good care of it. Maybe there will be a good fate in the future." The demon Immortal was speechless, but the mortal was calmer than him. He looked at Li Yunxin and said, "Dragon King, you said good fate. I think meeting the Dragon King is also a good fate. Although I don't have any brilliant magic power, I can serve the Dragon King and run errands for the Dragon King." At this time Li Chunfeng smiled. He raised his hand and pointed at the officer. "You are thinking that your Dragon King has great magic power and is like an immortal. So if you stay by his side, if you win his favor, you will be able to leave your mortal body? Or even if you don't have such a good thing, if you get something from him, it can be passed on to your family for thousands of generations and become an immortal?" Hanjua was stunned for a moment and then said seriously, "I don't dare to hide it. Other than wanting to do something for the Dragon King, I do have such thoughts." Li Chunfeng stroked his beard and looked at Li Yunxin. "This is an honest man. Yunxin, what do you think?" Li Yunxin thought for a moment and sighed. "Do you two know how dangerous the thing I am going to do is? Do you know that right now in this forest, there are already no less than 3 profound realm demon kings and more than 10 true realm demon kings eyeing us, ready to attack at any time?" Chapter 836. Hanjua and Yen Shiba looked at each other. The latter said in a low voice, "We did meet 3 demons on our way here. They were patrolling in the forest and their realms were not high. At that time we guessed that there should be demons with higher realms here. I thought that maybe they were here to join in the fun, or maybe they were invited by the crane demon." He paused, looked at Hanjua and said, "The situation here is dangerous, but we are prepared. As the saying goes, wealth is found in danger. Although we are not looking for wealth, we also understand that we need to go through hardships and dangers." Li Yunxin raised a hand and Yen Shiba stopped talking. They looked at him expectantly. So he sighed again. "You are prepared in your hearts, but are you prepared for it?" After saying that, he made a grabbing motion with his hand, as if he was grabbing something in the void. Then some existences really showed up. When the two camped and rested, they found a meadow under a big tree. They cut off a circle of wild grass and started a fire, but there were still giant trees around them. So the two of them felt like they were at the bottom of a well. But at this time they realized, the tree was not a tree. It was a giant demon. The 8 demons, who were hundreds of feet tall, formed a circle around the small bonfire. Some were bending over, some were opening their mouths, and some were stretching out their hands, which they thought were the thick branches of trees. Looking up, the huge ugly faces of the demons were high up, hidden in the darkness. But the light of the bonfire on the ground made the ferocious faces look uncertain. It was even more terrifying. With just a single glance, the lieutenant and the mage both inhaled a cold breath at the same time. A gurgling sound came from their throats as they fell to the ground. Their bodies were shaking and their faces were sweating like rain. Li Yunxin casually broke a branch that was sticking out of the bushes beside him, so blood flowed out from the cut. Looking at the branch in his hand, it was not a branch at all. It was a broken finger with black hair and nails as long as a small dagger. Even if there is danger, you need to be alive first. He threw the broken finger into the bonfire and beckoned with his hand. Then a clear spiritual power flowed into the two of them, calming them down. "The reason why we have appeared now is because you are about to step into the vicinity of the Fiend Lord's Heaven Fiend Cliff." The Fiend Lord was favored by the Golden Rock. Now he had many demon soldiers and demon generals under him. The surroundings of this Heaven Fiend Cliff were filled with illusion traps. With every step he took, he traversed through the ranks of demons. Did you expect such a situation? Their faces were ashen as they shook their heads. "Then let's go back." Li Yunxin smiled and said, "There are still many beautiful things in the world worth enjoying. Some people don't cherish this kind of thing because they've seen it too many times. That kind of person will eventually regret it. Don't be like that. At this moment, the two of them had lost their courage after seeing the statue-like giant demons that had been suppressed by Li Yunxin's divine ability. They no longer had the desire to force their luck. They got up on all fours, turned around and ran away. They even forgot to bid farewell to the Dragon King/leader. Once their footsteps disappeared, Li Chunfeng tore off a chicken wing from the roasted chicken over the fire and asked Li Yunxin with a smile, "Why did you talk so much to those two mortals?" Li Yunxin sighed. "They're working for us after all. These days, I feel like I'm soft-hearted. Perhaps it's because I don't hate them anymore. Besides," he laughed, "you heard what Hanzhua said. He'll be unlucky if he follows anyone. How dare I keep him by my side?" "That makes sense." Li Chunfeng looked at the huge wutong tree in the distance. "There are more demons here than we imagined. The Golden Rock must have known that Bai Yunxin abducted Lu Jun. It should have guessed that you'd come. It must have stationed a large number of troops around here. Bai Yunxin abducted Lu Jun. I don't know if he did it on a whim, or if it's part of the Golden Rock's plan." Li Yunxin fell silent for a while before he said, "I'll just ask." Following that, he waved his hand. The fire in front of him rose for a split second, then it shrank back. However, the seals on the surrounding demons had already disappeared. With a series of rumbling noises, those gigantic demons immediately used their hands and feet to retreat, destroying countless trees and rocks in the process. There was a clamor in the forest as if a huge battle had just taken place. Nonetheless, it was all because of the two people sitting next to the fire. Or to be more precise, it was because of Li Yunxin. There was no lack of advanced demons among the demons, but compared to the Grand Supreme, those below the Grand Supreme realm were mere ants. It was their first time experiencing the fearsome power of a Grand Supreme powerhouse, and they finally realized that even if they were in the profound realm, they could only be subdued by the Grand Supreme with a single thought. Admittedly, it was related to the fact that demons did not cultivate paths, techniques, or divine powers, but they knew that the Grand Supreme in front of them was also a demon, just like their Rock King. However, there were still some who had some courage. A male voice said, "What are you panicking about? If the Dragon King wanted to kill you, you would already be dead." Then the person who spoke appeared among the retreating demons and walked unhurriedly to the fire. He grinned at Li Yunxin. "Dragon King, we meet again." It was none other than Lord Yunjian. He had shown himself when Li Yunxin was preaching in Wei City, after the demon bird Zhao Yijun was beaten back to his original form by Li Yunxin. Once Lord Yunjian appeared, the demons calmed down a little. They all turned into human forms and stopped fleeing. However, not many dared to go forward. They all watched from afar. Because once the demonic energy that they were so proud of was suppressed by someone with a single thought, they would lose their confidence and would lose all their courage. Compared to humans, they were indeed more like the instincts of animals that sought benefits and avoided harm. Li Yunxin glanced at Lord Yunjian. "So the Rock King asked you to set up an ambush." Lord Yunjian was neither servile nor overbearing. He smiled calmly and said, "Dragon King, you misunderstood. The Rock King's attitude was the same as before. He didn't want to have a dispute and conflict. He hoped that things could be resolved peacefully. He just said that White Fairy did something irrational, and the Rock King couldn't do anything about it. He asked me to wait here in advance to explain to the Dragon King so as not to cause any misunderstanding." Li Yunxin widened his eyes in surprise. "Misunderstanding? Didn't Bai Yunxin tell your Rock King that I and the one next to me were going to kill him?" Lord Yunjian was stunned. "Are you kidding me, Dragon King?" The Rock King wouldn't take White Fairy's words seriously. They had an engagement, but it was ruined. She was naturally unhappy. It's true." Li Yunxin pointed to Li Chunfeng beside him. "We will rescue Lu Gongzan and Dragon Jiu first, and then we will kill our way to the Mocking Heavens Palace." Lord Yunjian became silent awkwardly as if he didn't know what to say for a while. At this time Li Yunxin smiled. "I'm kidding. Tell me, what does your Rock King want to say to me by asking you to wait here?" Lord Yunjian's expression changed again and again. Finally he forced a smile and said, "The Dragon King is really funny. I'm here to say that White Fairy kidnapped LV June and hid in the evil spirit's temporary imperial residence. Dragon King, look at the parasol tree on the evil spirit cliff. The cloud top palace is on the tree. When the evil spirit built this palace, the Rock King did help. Therefore this palace is extremely difficult to break through. Even if the Rock King was here, it would take a lot of effort. Besides, we invited LV June to the Mocking Heavens Palace not to threaten the Dragon King, but because we were afraid that the Dragon King wouldn't be able to find him for a while, which would delay the lives of Lu Gongzan and Dragon Jiao. Therefore, I'm afraid that the Dragon King might misunderstand that we don't want to hand them over. White Fairy asked the Dragon King to see her. She would definitely let the Dragon King in. Therefore, the Rock King said that if the Dragon King really went in, he could persuade the White Fairy. In this way we can bury the hatchet. Li Yunxin thought for a while and raised his hand to interrupt him. Did Bai Yunxin take something important away from your Rock King and hide it inside? Lord Yunjian let out an ah, and asked, what do you mean, Dragon King? If it's not something important that can't be taken by force, why do you want me, an outsider, to solve your own family affairs? Li Yunxin frowned and looked at Li Chunfeng. Am I right? Li Chunfeng also thought for a while. You have a point. Li Yunxin said, you know Golden Rock better than me. You've seen him before. Can you remember what important thing he has fallen into the hands of Bai Yunxin? Li Chunfeng coughed and looked at Yunjianjun. Oh, all of a sudden, the demon Yunjianjun finally put on a cold face and said in a deep voice, Dragon King, you are not funny. You are rude. Chapter 837. Li Yunxin shrugged. Hey, if you don't want to talk about this, let's talk about the Cloud Top Palace. What's so special about this place that even the Golden Rock couldn't break through? Yunjianjun was angry because of what he said before. He put his hands behind his back and said, the Dragon King doesn't believe what I said, right? Why don't you ask Li Chunfeng, who is beside you? He met the Golden Rock King and had a good talk with him. The Dragon King should believe what he said. Li Yunxin turned to look at Li Chunfeng and said in surprise, you know about this place? Li Chunfeng thought for a while and said, the Cloud Top Palace is not where Bai Yunxin lives. It belongs to the evil spirit. Bai Yunxin's real body is a red flame white phoenix. There's a saying that phoenixes don't rest unless it's a Chinese parasol tree. Therefore the evil spirit moved the Cloud Top Palace to that giant tree. That's why we see it now. In this way, Bai Yunxin's demon palace and the evil spirit's demon palace are merged together. It's hard to say who it belongs to. As for the inhibition outside, the Golden Rock King mentioned it to me. He was still in the seal at that time and his real body couldn't get out. Therefore he only taught him some things. He didn't expect the evil spirit to be so talented in the area of inhibition and did better than he expected. He looked at Yunjianjun and paused. He also said that sometimes the evil spirit ran back to the palace and refused to come out. He couldn't bring her out. I guess this is not a joke. The inhibition of the Cloud Top Palace must be a headache for the Golden Rock King. Yunjianjun coughed. Mr. Li, the Golden Rock King may not like you talking about his private affairs. Li Chunfeng smiled. I misspoke. Li Yunxin smiled too. My third sister is a heroic person who also knows how to act coquettishly. Where is she now? Is she hiding in the palace with my niece? Lord Yunjian finally answered. The Fiend Lord was going to persuade her, but I didn't. But he didn't come out after entering the palace. We guess that White Fairy has trapped the evil spirit as well. Perhaps. I managed to convince her. Li Yunxin sighed and looked at Li Chunfeng. Look at the trouble you've caused. But at this moment he heard a soft snort coming from the clouds. Trouble? Li Yunxin, do you think I'm trouble now? Then I will give you trouble. I'll show you what I can do if I want to do something for you. If he wanted to give you trouble, how far could he go? It was Bai Yunxin's voice. However, even with Li Yunxin's current great supreme mystique, he could not find where the demoness was talking to. Thus he and Li Chunfeng stood up. Lord Yunjian was anxious. Fairy Bai, little sister Bai, stop fooling around. If it goes on and spoils King Rock's plan, I'm afraid. You might as well say that I'm helping him achieve great things. Bai Yunxin snorted again. What do you know? Do you think Godfather really wants to live in peace with him? I've saved Godfather a lot of trouble by luring him here. Restriction. You want to know what the restriction of Cloud Top Palace is like? Let me tell you, from the moment you saw this parasol tree, you've already walked into the restriction. As soon as she finished speaking, the scene around Li Yunxin and the others changed immediately. It was originally night and a jungle. But suddenly it was bright and the sky was bright. In the blink of an eye, a green grassland appeared in the jungle. The grassland seemed to be boundless, like an ocean. There were no mountains at the end of their sight, only a straight line between the sky and the earth. There were no clouds in the sky and no sun, but it was full of bright sunshine. Moreover, he was the only one. Li Chunfeng, Lord Yunjian and the other demons were all gone. When he heard Li Chunfeng say that the restriction of Cloud Top Palace was powerful, he didn't take it seriously. But now he finally understood. When the scene around him changed and he was trapped in the restriction, he didn't notice anything. As this thought flashed through his mind, a luxuriant parasol tree suddenly appeared a dozen steps away from him. The trunk was as thick as a person's arms, and the crown was lush like a big umbrella. 2 people stood under the tree. One was a woman wearing a red and white auspicious dress. In fact, in Midland, red was auspicious and white was filial. Her auspicious dress was red and white, so it was hard to say whether it was auspicious or filial. This woman was Bai Yunxin. There was another man who was dressed in bright red. Li Yunxin hadn't seen his face, but looking at his appearance and expression, he felt that it should be Lu Jun. Or rather Lu Jun. He looked pretty good. He hesitated for a moment, then walked over and stopped 3 steps away from the two. At this moment Bai Yunxin spoke. Strangely, she wasn't talking to him, but lowered her head and spoke to the grass, as if she was talking to an ant or some other bug in the grass. You two stay here. She looked both angry and proud. This layer of restriction of the Cloud Top Palace isn't something that can be broken by brute force divine arts. Look at the grass around you. No matter where you go, you have to come back eventually. If I don't call you out for a day, you have to stay here for a day. If I don't call you out for 10 years, you have to stay here for 10 years. The best thing is, no matter how long you stay in here, I will only be outside for a moment. Do you understand now? I can make you stay here until you go crazy from boredom, until you kill yourself. These words were a strange experience for Li Yunxin. Because he heard Bai Yunxin say these words 3 steps away, and at the same time he heard a voice coming from the sky. The same words. But the person who spoke seemed to be in the sky. So he concentrated his eyes and looked at the place where Bai Yunxin was staring. He saw some small plants under the wild grass on the ground which looked like moss. He took a closer look, only to find that it wasn't moss but trees. The small trees were like strands of hair and they formed a vast forest. This forest was hidden under the grass on the ground, and it surrounded the parasol tree behind Bai Yunxin and Lu Jun. And where Bai Yunxin was staring at, Li Yunxin used her eyesight again, and she could see that there was an even smaller ball of light between the hair-thin trees. At this level, the naked eye could no longer see it. Only those with supernatural powers could use their chi to look. But to see clearly what was next to the ball of light was not something that could be done by those below the profound realm. Li Yunxin saw that the ball of light was actually a bonfire. Beside the tiny bonfire stood a few tiny people. They were tiny Li Yunxin, tiny Li Chunfeng, tiny Yunjianjun, and some other demons. He saw himself also lowering his head and looking seriously at the grass on the ground. It was as if there was an even smaller world hidden in that small world. With a thought, Li Yunxin slowly raised his hand. Then he saw himself also raise his hand. He gradually understood. He looked at Bai Yunxin, who was 3 steps away. So, the parasol tree I saw just now that pierced through the clouds is the one in front of me. Chapter 838. Bai Yunxin raised her head at this moment. It was as if she didn't notice that there was someone beside her and was startled by him. But the surprise on her face was fleeting and she soon sneered, "Oh, that's amazing. It turns out that people who have reached the Grand Supreme level can see my array eye?" Li Yunxin looked around and said gently, "But I don't know how to get out. Are you really going to trap me here for the rest of my life?" Bai Yunxin stared at him. "It depends on my mood." "Are you really going to?" "It depends on my mood too." Bai Yunxin pushed LV Jun beside her. "Say something." This Lu Jun had always been expressionless, like a puppet. After being pushed by her, he woke up and the expression on his face became interesting. First he saw Bai Yunxin, then Li Yunxin. He immediately shouted, "Li Yunxin, save me. This demoness has lost her mind." As he spoke, he started to run towards them. But he looked very funny, he could only walk on the spot, unable to move at all. Li Yunxin sighed, "Ninth young master, don't be impatient. I'm sorry that I killed you before, but at that time..." Okay, I know." This LV Jun turned pale as if the Bai Yunxin beside him was a poisonous snake. "Save me quickly and we'll forget about the past." Bai Yunxin frowned and pushed him again. This LV Jun became dull again like a statue. "Now that you've seen him, you should know that it's not fake." She looked straight at Li Yunxin. Guess why I did this? Why did you let me see him? Why did you snatch him and call you here? Li Yunxin thought for a while. Because I refused to marry you and made you lose face. So you want to use this method to let me experience the feeling of losing you completely? But the ninth young master is a good choice. You two used to chase and run, but you didn't really kill him. It's a bit like children playing around. The more they like to bully someone, the more they like that person. If the ninth young master agrees, I have nothing else to say. But now he doesn't like it. Do you want to find a husband who will run away as soon as he has the chance? Bai Yunxin only looked at him. No one knew what she was thinking. After hearing his words, he sneered, there are many demons imprisoned in the Cloud Top Palace's restriction. They call themselves young talents and they all want to be my husband. If you don't want little Nine to marry me, why don't I introduce them to you and ask you to help me choose? Li Yunxin laughed. A young talent among the demons? I think we should forget about it. Anyone who had the slightest bit of resentment would have run to Yunshan to die. The ones left behind are all worthless cowards. What's there to pick from these scum? He sighed again. Shui, have you ever thought about this? I never had the chance to talk to you about this in detail before. But now that you've trapped the people with disordered ears, we can talk about it. Have you ever thought about, why do you want to get married? What is it for? Bai Yunxin was slightly stunned. What? Why do you want to get married? Bai Yunxin frowned. I just want to marry you. But after saying this, she put on a serious face again. But it's not a big deal for others. I want you to know that there are many people who want to marry me. Li Yunxin laughed again. Then let's talk about this. Liking someone doesn't necessarily mean you have to get married. This is just a formality. People in the mortal world are animals. They are driven by their biological instincts to mate and reproduce. Later, when they become sensible, their biological instincts are still there, and they still have the desire and impulse to reproduce. Coupled with some social and cultural factors, there is a need to get married, to declare ownership, to declare mutual loyalty, and to support each other. In essence, they come together for survival and reproduction. But later I thought about it more and said that there is such a thing as love. In fact, love is also determined by the biological instincts. It's just a chemical reaction caused by something secreted in the brain. Later it becomes a habit and no one asks why. It's as if getting married and having children is one of the necessary things in life. I think it's because you've been in contact with me for a long time and you've gradually learned to be human. So, when people in the mortal world want to get married, you also want this form. But you're a big demon. Li Yunxin sighed. You don't lack food and drink and you don't need others to feed you. Speaking of biological instincts, you and I both know that at our level of cultivation this thing can be turned off like a switch. Or let me ask you in another way, once you marry me, what do you want to do with me? The two of them took off their clothes and had fun on the bed? Bai Yunxin raised her eyebrows. How can you say such things? That's disgusting. Li Yunxin laughed. So, you see, why do you want to marry me? To travel the world together. Bai Yunxin stared at him. Not for those things. She thought for a while and said, but we don't have to stay together all the time. Mortals are always together and I'm tired of it. Li Yunxin clapped his hands. That's it. If you don't marry me, can't we travel the world together? Bai Yunxin was speechless. She stared at him and thought for a while. You make it sound so nice. Then what's going on with you and Li Xinyu? My situation is special. Li Yunxin blinked. I used to be a human. But there are a lot of emotions that people can experience but haven't. So, I plan to experience it seriously, including getting married and having children. This is very similar to the tribulations that people in Xianmen go through during cultivation. If I don't experience this, I feel incomplete. Psych, you were all friends. You see, when I was in trouble on Dragon Island, you all came to help me. The ninth young master Li Xinyu, old Lu Yu, were my best friends in the world. But now you're using old Lu to threaten me and little Nine as a tool, Li Yunxin coughed. The five of us are not happy. If everyone is harmonious and the five of us are happy together, then that's true happiness. As for traveling, reciting poems, it's more lively when there are more people. I said those words to you in Shuanghu City because Li Chunfeng wanted to kill your father. I was thinking that if he did such a thing, your father would become suspicious of you. I'll just pretend to piss you off. But in my heart you're still my friend. A good friend. Bai Yunxin fell silent. After a while she said, but I'm still angry. You chose Li Xinyu but not me. It's obvious that you like her more. Li Yunxin looked at her seriously. You really said that out of anger. Because you should know that there's a kind of fate. Even if the two of you are the same in my heart because of the fate between us, or in the words of mortals, when I have to make a choice I will naturally choose her. Or in other words, I'm following the will of heaven. Chapter 839. Bai Yunxin thought for a while, then let out a long sigh and looked at him. So, you didn't choose me because you think I'm not as good as her. Just because of your luck? Yes. Then. Bai Yunxin thought for a while. Now that you and Li Chunfeng want to kill my father, how can we still be friends? Maybe this is the real business. Li Yunxin thought to himself. He thought for a while, then said, I'll tell you the truth. I didn't come to this world to fight and kill. I came to enjoy life. But life has forced me to fight back and forth. Talking about your father, it's the same. I can talk about this for 3 days and 3 nights, but there won't be any result. I can believe that he won't hurt me, and he can be the great master of the Midland, and he won't interfere in the affairs of the human world. Under this premise, I'd be bored to find trouble with a great master. But the problem is I don't know what he thinks. To solve this I have to see what I can see. Like now. Right now I strongly suspect that your father wants to hurt me. He wants to hurt me, so I can't just give up, so I have to fight with him. Otherwise what should I do? Bai Yunxin sighed. I tried to persuade him. He promised me. He never mentioned anything against you in front of me. But it's very difficult for him to prove it. My adoptive father is arrogant. Li Yunxin raised his hand. It's easy to prove it. Right here in this demon sky cliff. If your adoptive father doesn't do anything to me in these 10 days, I'll believe that he won't hurt me. Bai Yunxin was stunned. Why? Because I believe that he will, said Li Yunxin seriously. All the signs show that he will kill me. Bai Yunxin's eyes dimmed. She said in a low voice, then you have to promise me. If my adoptive father doesn't hurt you, you won't hurt him. But what if he wants to harm you? Bai Yunxin bit her lip. We fiendish demons don't care about right or wrong. We only care about the strong and the weak. But if you want to talk about right and wrong, there's nothing wrong between you and my monarch father. It's just that 2 tigers cannot live on the same mountain. Since that's the case, when the 2 of you start fighting, he won't be the one to feel sorry for me, and neither will you. I don't blame anyone. Li Yunxin paused, then said sincerely, thank you. Bai Yunxin shook her head and sighed. You really should thank me. Do you know that my true form is the scarlet flame white phoenix? I'm not afraid of fire. Her sudden words seemed to be out of the blue. Li Yunxin was taken aback. But I've seen your true body at the foot of the cloudy mountains. Just a glimpse. Then he heard an even stranger sentence. Therefore Li Xinyu can't do this. Li Yunxin was about to frown when he saw Bai Yunxin's expression suddenly change. She shouted, You want to save them? Dream on. Just as she said this, the scenery around them suddenly faded away. The 2 of them were now in a spacious hall. It wasn't appropriate to call it a hall. Because the hall had a roof. This place didn't have a roof, so it looked more like a big square with walls. The floor was paved with white jade and the walls were made of gold and silver. Above their heads was a clear blue sky and the sun hung high in the sky. If this wasn't an illusion but reality, it meant that the 2 of them were talking for a while, and it was already daytime of the 2nd day. Other than Li Yunxin and Bai Yunxin, there was another familiar person in the hall, the Fiend Lord. There was also another familiar person, Lu Jun. There were also 40 to 50 people, dressed in different clothes and shapes. One look and one could tell that they were all demons. These people should have heard Bai Yunxin's words. Lu Jun seemed to still be restrained and he still looked like a clay statue. The Fiend Lord took a step forward and stopped in front of Bai Yunxin and Li Yunxin. He said in a deep voice, Ninth brother, listen to me. The confusion in Li Yunxin's heart lasted for a blink of an eye. Or even shorter. He realized that the conversation between Bai Yunxin and him in the restriction just now had a deeper meaning. He thought that the demoness still had a grudge in her heart, and there was a knot in her heart that couldn't be untied. That was why she brought Lu Jun to interrogate him and wanted him to give an answer. But now, she must have made a decision in her heart before talking to him. And those words were just to listen to what he had to say. But what was she going to do? A thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Li Yunxin thought of what she said before. My real body is the red flame white phoenix. He realized what she was going to do. If his deduction was right, then what she would say next was, what's there to say to him? How dare he betray me? When Bai Yunxin was angry, the sleeves of her auspicious robe fluttered as if she was in the deep sea. Dragon Xiaoju, you care about Lu Gongzan, you care about Li Xinyu, but you don't care about me? I'll kill them now. Li Yunxin smiled in his heart. But he kept a straight face and stared at the Fiend Lord with a pale face. Third sister. You helped me in Yunshan and I don't want to be your enemy. But today the 9th young master and Lu Gongzan must leave with me. Your restrictive spells can't trap me and none of the people here can trap me. You should be persuading her to calm down and be rational, not me. Then you should calm down. The Fiend Lord's eyes never left him, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. There's no need for the misunderstanding between you to escalate to this stage. It was my idea to ask you to come. But there's nothing to think about. I talked to him in the restriction for the whole night. Bai Yunxin suddenly grabbed LV Jun, turned into a gust of demon wind and flew up to the sky. Li Yunxin shouted, "How dare you!" When he shouted, his body emitted a strong murderous intent. Even the mystic realm demons would be frightened by the power of a grand supreme powerhouse, as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Not to mention the dozens of demons who were shocked by him, even the Fiend Lord's hair stood on end. He had to use his demon power to resist the power of the netherworld. At this moment, Li Yunxin turned into a gust of black wind and flew up to the sky. He could only vaguely hear the Fiend Lord shouting behind him, "Ninth brother, don't hurt her. He's sincere." In just 2 breaths, Li Yunxin had flown to a very high place. Looking down, he could only see a small golden spot in the sea of clouds. It should be the floor and walls of the hall that reflected the sunlight. That should be the so-called cloud-top heavenly palace. He was now in the Grand Supreme Realm. He thought that he had to save some energy to not catch up with Bai Yunxin immediately. Unexpectedly, Bai Yunxin's flying speed was much faster than he had imagined. Maybe it was because she was a natural bird. He chased for about 15 minutes before he finally saw a small red dot in the sky. After flying for a while, he finally saw the female demon who was holding LV Jun in her hand. But now there was no resentment on her face. "Dad," she smiled. "You almost scared me just now." Li Yunxin looked around. There was no one, only the curved ground under his feet. He let out a breath and asked, "So, Qin Zhao looked for you?" Chapter 840. 7 days ago, Bai Yunxin said. Bai Yunxin said, "It's very sudden, but since she's a grand master of painting and you don't treat her as an enemy, I think you should do as she says." Li Yunxin thought about it. He realized that 7 days ago was the day he met Qin Zhao under Li Chuanfeng's surveillance and asked him a few questions. That day he mentioned that there was a guy called Superman in the previous world. After doing experiments, he would fly into the sun to disinfect himself. He felt that with Qin Zhao's intelligence she should be able to understand what he meant. If she wanted to help him, she was smart enough to create an opportunity for him. As expected, she did it and did it. Bai Yunxin kidnapped LV Jun and used Lu Gongzan to threaten him. This should be to create an opportunity for him, because she wanted to go to the sun. That night he talked a lot of things with Qin Zhao, but it was all a cover for this goal. For this reason he specifically mentioned whether I can draw a different spirit. In order to gain his trust, Li Chunfeng had given him his soul atlas. When he mentioned this again, Li Chunfeng would definitely focus all his attention on it, thinking that he might be planning to do something to his spirit. From the looks of it, his plan of crossing the sea by deceiving the heavens the other day had worked. He passed the message to Qin Zhao in front of Li Chunfeng, but Li Chunfeng didn't notice Qin Zhao's response. He breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. "Qin Ying told you to use this method?" Bai Yunxin looked at him seriously. "She only told me to help you but not what to do. I thought of this method myself. But let me ask you, what was true and what was false about what you said to me in the restriction?" Li Yunxin also said seriously, "It's all true. I didn't know that you were lying to me." Bai Yunxin thought for a moment. "Then I believe you. But Qin Ying told me to lure you into the sun. What are you going to do there?" Li Yunxin raised her head to look. Both of them were high up in the sky and the sun had become bigger. It was so bright that one couldn't look at it directly. It was pure white. "To foreshadow something," Li Yunxin said, In case my good father wants to harm me. Harm you? Li Chunfeng? Bai Yunxin looked at him in surprise. You think he wants to hurt you? Why do you think that everyone wants to harm you? Li Yunxin laughed. That's right. I just think that everyone except you and your friends are trying to harm me. But it turned out that if it weren't for my persecutory delusion, I wouldn't even know where I would be buried. Li Chunfeng Humph. It's hard to say, he whispered. I don't have any evidence, but my intuition tells me that something is wrong. This instinct of mine has saved me many times. This move was also a precaution. Once my delusion comes true, it can at least prevent me from being too passive. As he said this, he looked down and said, They're following us. Let's go all the way. Then he exhaled and shouted, Where do you think you're going? Bai Yunxin realized what he was talking about. She immediately used all her strength to push out a palm and shot up like a bolt of lightning. But this time she wasn't in her human form. A huge white figure suddenly appeared in the sky. It was wrapped in flames and could compete with the sun. It was Bai Yunxin's true form, the red flame white phoenix. Although it had the word phoenix in it, it was different from the legendary phoenix in Li Yunxin's world. What trailed behind it wasn't a few long tail feathers but a beam of fire. Even with his current cultivation, he felt that the air around him was scorching hot. If it were someone with a lower cultivation level, they would have been roasted from far away. No wonder Xianxia had found her. In this world, only Bai Yunxin could get close to the sun under the Grand Supreme Realm. Li Yunxin followed closely. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a small white dot. Only then did someone arrive. The two who came were not weak. They were both in the mystic realm. The one in the black robe and silver accessories was the evil lord. The other was Li Chunfeng. When they arrived, the demonic power from Bai Yunxin's palm had not dissipated. The air was still hot. The evil lord's expression changed. They're fighting here. He flew up and said, She even showed her true form. How can your son be so cruel? Bai Yunxin always helped him. Half of the evil lord's demonic soul came from the golden rock. His flying speed was also very fast. However, Li Chunfeng was able to keep up with them without much difficulty. He frowned and sighed in the strong wind. Don't rush, evil lord. He should have been merciful. Otherwise, with his current cultivation, Miss Bai wouldn't have lasted more than 2 or 3 breaths. It's because she's good at escaping that she lasted until now. But where are they going? The evil lord said angrily, No matter where they go, don't let your son hurt her. Otherwise, I'll take you out of the restriction and lock you back in the same way I did. Li Chunfeng smiled warmly. He knows how to control himself. He's just worried about his friend's safety. Why are you doing this with Miss Bai, evil lord? You're just messing around. The evil lord turned around and glared at him. Do you think I don't know why you're here? The Rock King was worried that you would hurt him, so he asked me to set up this trap to lure you into the restriction. Then he would talk to you. My 9th brother. He always thinks that someone wants to hurt him. But the Rock King just wants to be a peaceful demon king. I told him 3 times. Li Chunfeng suddenly interrupted her. So you don't know? The evil lord was stunned. Know what? He asked again. I'm curious. Why do you treat Li Yunxin as your 9th brother? It's fine if you didn't know. But now that you know that your 9th brother is in Lu Jun's body, why do you have a good impression of him? Because his temper matches my personality. The evil lord said casually, There aren't many demons like him in this world. Why do you ask? Why did you ask me what I know? Li Chunfeng laughed. No wonder. So you're a rare sentimental person among the demons. The Golden Rock probably treats you differently because of this. He even gave birth to Bai Yunxin with you. That's true. You're the only one in this world who's good enough for him. His words were extremely rude. The evil lord frowned. Li Chunfeng, how dare you? If it was any other time he would probably be angry. But now he seemed to be worried about Bai Yunxin's safety, so he didn't stop. But Li Chunfeng didn't stop. He continued, Since you're so sincere, you're a rare kind person among the demons. The Golden Rock probably didn't tell you what we're going to do. Otherwise you probably won't cooperate with us. You might even tell Li Yunxin everything. Women are really unpredictable. Chapter 841. When these words reached his ears, the evil lord finally stopped moving. She stared at Li Chunfeng. What did you say? Li Chunfeng stopped and looked at her calmly. I mean, your Lord Rock doesn't just want to be the demon king of peace. As for having Bai Yunxing with you, it's probably because you look similar to Shinryu. So he's just an emotional sustenance. In fact, the two of us have been conspiring to kill Li Yunxin for a long time. This time he's probably using you to lure Li Yunxin into the trap. It's a good plan. The good thing is that your daughter suddenly threw a tantrum. Everything happened so suddenly and reasonably. Even Li Yunxin didn't suspect anything. The evil lord was stunned for a while. He couldn't believe that Li Chunfeng dared to say such things in front of him. Then he was confused. Emotional sustenance. Conspiring. Both of them? Finally it turned into anger. No one had ever dared to talk to her like this. You're just a mystic realm. How dare you? Thin scales appeared on the side of the evil lord's cheeks, which made her voice sound metallic. I'm going to capture you and interrogate you about your intentions for saying such things. Li Chunfeng didn't panic. He was still smiling. All right. You can try. Arrogant. The evil lord used a killing move in her anger. Her black hair spread out, and the silver ornaments on her black hair expanded into dozens of small swords. Then they scattered into a rain of swords that surrounded the two of them. Cold light flashed on the swords. Electric snakes slithered around them. A thunderous attack was about to be launched. However, Li Chunfeng raised his hand and grabbed the air casually. The rain of swords disappeared in an instant. The swords and knives turned back into accessories and were held between his fingers. It just looks like a mystic realm. He smiled warmly. Otherwise, why would your Lord Rock cooperate with me? The evil lord was shocked. You're too. However, Li Chunfeng waved his sleeve after uttering those 3 words. The evil lord fell down like a kite with a broken string. Li Chunfeng waved his hand again and kept her in his sleeve. For the sake of Golden Rock, I'll spare your life. He thought for a while and smiled. Xian. All parents in the world suffer. Then he shot straight up, and in just 3 breaths of time he saw the 2 cloud hearts 1,000 meters above him. By this time the air had become boiling hot. It was no longer a blue sky above his head, but an intense white light that obscured his vision. The sun became very large. Only then did Li Chunfeng realize that they had been flying towards the sun all along. The sun should be a star, far away from the earth, burning fiercely. But now the sun seemed to be within reach. Li Chunfeng was taken aback for a moment, then he felt relieved. The space in which the heavenly sphere was located had been completely destroyed, so the sun of the past naturally would not have survived. The one that illuminated the world now should be a man-made creation. He had never thought of this before, but now that he had seen it with his own eyes, the idea came to him. It was a little strange, but it should be within reason. Who would dwell on the daily occurrences of the day? He focused his mind and used his eyesight to look at the 2 people higher up. They still hadn't stopped. Bai Yunxin seemed to be anxious from being chased by Li Yunxin, and she shouted, Li Yunxin, do you care about them that much? Fine. Now I'll throw them into this sun and burn them clean. After saying this, she spread her wings and dove straight into the white light. Li Chunfeng realized that since her true form was the scarlet flame white phoenix, she should not be afraid of fire. Or rather, she should have a tolerance for this ball of light that was like a real sun that far surpassed the demons in the world. She was smart enough to escape here. But after reaching the Grand Supreme level, she was not afraid of this kind of fire. He could actually go higher, even to Li Yunxin's side. But there was some kind of tiredness in his heart that made him lazy. The 2 of them were in his sight. The sun was so hot that he had to use his spiritual energy to resist it, so why bother? Then he saw Li Yunxin's figure flash. If you stop now, I'll still treat you as a friend. He also dove into the blazing sun. Li Chunfeng did not follow. He felt that he was not interested in this sun. He was too lazy to look, and he was too lazy to go in and find out. After all, the situation was under his control. He just didn't know that Golden Rock had tacitly allowed Bai Yunxin to do this kind of thing, and what kind of battle array he had set up with this matter. He just had to wait for him to come out. After chasing Bai Yunxin here, there was no way to escape, and Li Yunxin was worried about the safety of his friends, so he probably would not hold back anymore. Li Yunxin had thought about what the inside of this sun would look like, but he did not expect it to be like this. The surface temperature of the sun in the solar system was about 5,500 degrees Celsius, and the temperature at the center was about 20 million degrees Celsius. The temperature of this one should not be higher than the real sun. Otherwise, the land would have been scorched long ago. And he speculated that the temperature would be lower. Because what brought warmth to the Midland and allowed all things to live and grow was definitely not this thing. It was too small. The real sun was very far away from the Earth, so it could project its energy to the planet relatively evenly. If this sun provided the same amount of heat, everything it passed through would have been vaporized long ago. The heat of the Midland should come from the underground, or from the star world that wrapped the sky ball. And this sun should only be emitting some light, pretending to be bright. But even so, the energy contained in it was still amazing. Because it had been shining for nearly 80,000 years. He thought that since it was a creation of that civilization, it should have a solid body, just like that bright moon. The fuel might come from the nuclear reaction. No, that was too low level for that civilization. And the antimatter. No, whatever he could think of, it should be a relatively low-level one. Or it was unnecessary. The natural power from the star world filled the world, and the chaotic universe outside was the inexhaustible source of energy. For tens of thousands of years, spirit creatures raised their heads and looked at the sky, but when the sun flashed across the sky, they never felt any strange changes in the natural power, which meant that the natural power and the sun's energy source should be the same. But now that he had actually entered this sun, he realized that his speculation was correct. He just didn't expect that there was no mechanical or solid body in it. It was nothing but a sphere of light. In the center of this sphere of light, there was a spot that had been releasing a terrifying amount of energy. Bai Yunxin's real body stopped beside him, and LV June, who was held in her hand earlier, was being protected by her wings. Therefore, Li Yunxin tried to sense that spot with his spirit power. But then he quickly drew back his spirit power as if his hand was burned by a fire. The energy in that spot was way too strong. It was almost as strong as the netherworld power inside his body. No, it was even stronger than the netherworld power, and no living being could control it. This was probably the power of the chaotic world outside the star world. Chapter 842. We can't stay here for too long, Bai Yunxin said. What are you going to do? Do it quickly. Li Yunxin was silent for a while, then said, I'm done. Sco. Li Chunfeng is down there, you have to act well. Done. Bai Yunxin looked around in surprise. What did you do? I can't tell you yet. It's not that I don't trust you, but I don't trust your father. He's in the realm of Grand Supreme, he has too many tricks up his sleeves, it's hard to defend against. Bai Yunxin was in the true form of the White Phoenix, so her expression couldn't be seen. But after a while she said, That's fine. Then she threw Lu Jun out. Li Yunxin realized that she wasn't happy after all. If it wasn't for his quick reflexes, Lu Jun would have been burnt to a crisp in the blink of an eye. The White Phoenix let out a clear cry and rushed out of the blazing white light. Li Yunxin followed closely behind, rushing out with LV Jun. Li Chunfeng saw Li Yunxin succeed from a few miles below, and immediately transmitted his voice. Yunxin, let people go when possible. Don't do anything to her anymore. Li Yunxin stopped and looked at him, then at Bai Yunxin, who had already condensed into a human form, and said coldly, Speak. What's the restriction on Lu Jun's body? You're a Grand Supreme, you're so powerful that you could snatch her from my hands, can't you break a restriction? Bai Yunxin brushed her sleeves. Since you want to cut off all ties with me, why don't I tell you something else? When she said this, steam rose from her body, making her face slightly twisted. Thus, it was hard to see what expression she had on her face. My father was sealed and imprisoned by the art saint for 2,000 years. Do you know where he was imprisoned? She raised her hand and pointed downwards. It's right here. When they looked down from the sky, they could only see blurry clouds. The spacious hall that they came from was now extremely small, like a speck of dust. He had to use his divine ability to barely make out a small bright spot. But now, with a wave of her hand, the clouds below suddenly dispersed. An extremely tall tree was revealed. The giant tree had many branches, but there were very few leaves on it, compared to the size of the tree. As a result, it looked more like a huge wooden frame that rose into the sky. Even at their height, the branches of the trees were as thick as fingers. The hall from before was like a tiny grain of sand on a finger. Li Yunxin was slightly taken aback. He was secretly shocked. It was not because the golden rock had been sealed here, but because no matter how he probed and sensed, he realized that this tree should really exist. When they first arrived, they couldn't see this tree. Only when they were several miles away did it suddenly appear in their line of sight. Therefore both Li Yunxin and the evil Taoist priest thought that this thing was a smokescreen. It only made people feel that it was big and therefore it looked impressive. Later on, they were all sucked into the restriction and didn't have the chance to explore the secrets of this giant tree. Only now did they see the whole picture. But in theory, this kind of tree shouldn't exist. Before knowing the secret of this world, Li Yunxin would think that it was a divine tree that had turned into this strange form because of the Reiki of heaven and earth. But now he knew that the so-called celestial techniques in this world were ultimately no different from his world. They all displayed different forms under the effect of a certain set of rules. And according to the rules he knew, this tree couldn't exist. A tree that was more than 10 kilometers tall. It was like a nail protruding from the heavenly sphere. How could this thing grow so big? He frowned and was about to ask when he heard Bai Yunxin say again, "Since this restriction can seal my father, it can naturally seal you too. Li Yunxin, do you think you can escape?" He felt a little warm in his heart. He realized that although the evil Taoist was angry because he refused to tell her what method he had left in the sun, she still used this method to remind him of the possible methods of the Golden Rock. At this moment Li Chunfeng said, "Miss Bai, is the Rock King also in the Cloud Top Palace now?" Bai Yunxin didn't answer him. She just glared at him and then looked at Li Yunxin. "What do you want now? Do you want to take me as well?" "Between us." Li Yunxin smiled but didn't know how to answer her. If it was any other time he could put on an act and the people around him wouldn't see anything. But the person beside him was Li Chunfeng. He was not an idiot. Li Yunxin had confidence in himself but not in Bai Yunxin. This evil Taoist had always been unscrupulous. If he asked her to put on an act, after a long time, Li Chunfeng would see the flaw sooner or later. He was holding LV Jun in one hand and exerted his strength, trying to find out what the restriction on him looked like so that he could change the topic. Then he would ask Bai Yunxin to remove the restriction, or say something to provoke her to leave. When he released Lu Gongzan and the 9th young master, he still had to find a place for their bodies or spirits to stay. Li Chunfeng said that he wanted him to kill his way to the Mocking Heaven's palace. If he really had ulterior motives, he might lead him into a few traps. Then he could slowly buy time. After leaving the Cloud Top Palace, he could prepare a place for little Nine and old Lu. When they were out of danger, he could accompany Li Chunfeng or the Golden Rock. But as soon as his demonic power entered LV Jun's body, he felt a string snap. If the restriction on LV Jun's body was seen as a bag, this string was like the buckle of the bag. It was very intricately designed. If someone below the Grand Supreme wanted to break it, he would always lack a bit of strength. But if a Grand Supreme wanted to examine it, he could use the slightest strength to pry it open. Only those who had a clear understanding of the power flow in the demon's body and knew Daoist magic could do it. Li Yunxin was slightly stunned because of this. At this moment, LV Jun, who was originally in a daze in his hand, suddenly had a lively expression on his face. At first he looked around blankly and then he was shocked and stared at Li Yunxin. "You're Li Yunxin? Save me. Your friends are in my body. Save me." He looked extremely panicked as if his life was in danger. Li Yunxin's heart trembled. "Tell me, how can I save you?" But LV Jun only said at this moment, "It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. I'm in so much pain. The Golden Rock planted a restriction in my meridians. Save me, or I will explode and die. Your two friends won't survive either." As he said this, his body suddenly swelled up as if someone was inflating his body. This Long Sun was in extreme pain, so he tried to show his fiend god body to resist the damage in his body. But fine scales appeared and disappeared on his face and hands, as if his whole body was imprisoned by some power and he couldn't get rid of it. At this moment he saw Li Chunfeng in the distance and his eyes suddenly widened. "You." Chapter 843. Yunxin. "Kill him," Li Chunfeng said coldly. "He's right. Once he self-destructs, it will definitely affect Long Jiao and Lu Gongzan. With the two of us here, it won't be a problem to make a body for them. The Golden Rock wants to threaten you with this. You can't be fooled. Kill him now and take his soul alive." Lu Jun's face was already twisted by the pain. Now, after hearing Li Chunfeng's words, there seemed to be some fear in his pain. He immediately roared and tried to show his real body with all his might. But how could he get away so easily when he was under the control of Li Yunxin, the Grand Supreme Demon? His body was like a balloon, suddenly inflating and then being coldly grabbed back by Li Yunxin in the next moment. But Li Yunxin didn't move immediately because of two things. One was Li Chuanfeng's tone and expression. Along the way he had been speaking gently and calmly, as if he and his son were working together, and the world was under their control. It was a kind of extreme confidence. But now his tone was cold and stern as if he had seen a terrible enemy. But this was just a mysterious realm dragon son. In today's world he was a character that could be easily crushed. The second was because he mentioned the ninth young master and Lu Gongzan. And when he mentioned these two his tone was warm as if he was also their best friend. This kind of eagerness was too much. There must be something wrong when something was out of the ordinary. Lu Jun had glared at Li Chunfeng and said you, but was immediately interrupted by him. What did he want to say? So he used his demonic power in his palm to wake Lu Jun up. What do you want to say? You. Lu Jun pointed at Li Chunfeng as if he himself was confused and couldn't believe it. Why do you look like the golden rock? However, he only managed to say a few words. A branch of the huge parasol tree under them suddenly swelled up and stabbed at Li Yunxin and Li Chunfeng. That thing seemed to have a life of its own. In the blink of an eye, it shot up into the sky, and when it closed in on the two of them, it let out a hum and spread out tens of thousands of branches, covering the sky and covering the earth like a storm. It was difficult for ordinary magical equipment to pose a threat to the two of them, but the branch of the Wutong tree seemed to have the ability of the Grand Supreme. It was not stabbing at them, but more like reaching out from the void in all directions without any warning. Li Yunxin snorted coldly and waved his sleeves. Those twigs turned into ashes like green smoke. But in the next moment the green smoke gathered together and attacked again. Li Chunfeng on the other hand was struggling. Without Li Yunxin's powerful means he could only dodge left and right, but it was more daunting than dangerous. Everything happened so suddenly that the two of them could only react in an instant. But just as Li Yunxin dispersed another wave of green smoke, he suddenly heard a muffled groan from Lu Jun in his palm. When he looked again, a thin branch shot out of thin air and drilled into his ear. At the same time it seemed to have taken root in his body. Countless branches sprouted and drilled out of his chest and abdomen. Lu Jun was also a profound realm great demon of the dragons and had a strong body. But now his abdomen was split open by the branch of the Wutong tree, and his body was destroyed in the blink of an eye. As soon as Lu Jun died, 3 divine souls flew out of his body. Li Yunxin could only frown. He looked at Lu Gongzan and the 9th young master and put them into his sleeve. But at this moment he heard laughter from afar. Dragon King, you're really good. My Wutong is not an ordinary item but an extraordinary treasure. But it can't hurt you at all. As soon as the man finished speaking, the wriggling branches around the two of them immediately disappeared without a trace. When they looked at the source of the sound they saw a ball of golden light. If they impolitely probed the golden light with their divine senses, they would find that they could not see the depth of the golden light, nor could they see any aura fluctuations. It was as if it was just a ball of light, ordinary and unremarkable. But this meant that this ball of light could hide its realm and power from Li Yunxin, a super expert of the Grand Supreme Realm. In other words, it was also a Grand Supreme Realm expert. Bai Yunxin was not affected by the fierce attack just now. Only now did she come back to her senses. When she saw the ball of golden light she flew over. Father, you promised me. The golden light laughed again. What? Did this kid let you down and snatch someone from your hands? I'm avenging you, but you're begging for mercy for him? Bai Yunxin did not fly to the side of the golden light. Instead she stopped between them. The sun was dazzling in the sky and the sky was blue. The 4 of them were so far apart that they were just small dots. But because of their supernatural powers, they spoke and did things as if they were only 3 or 4 steps away from each other. Bai Yunxin said, Father, I'm done with him. I don't want to see him again for the rest of my life, but I don't want him to die. You promised me, if he didn't have any bad intentions, you wouldn't argue with him. The golden light, the Grand Supreme Rock King in the golden light, seemed to be silent for a while. Then he said, Sigh. My silly daughter. Don't you know why they're here? They're here to save Long Jiao and Lu Gongzan. They're also here to take my life. I won't argue with him, but you should ask him if he's willing to let me, the Rock King, stay in Midland. At this time, Li Chunfeng glanced at the incomplete body of LV Jun in Li Yunxin's hand. That golden rock must have used some method to make Jun say those words just now to distract you and me. Then he used his magic treasure to attack. So it seems that this place is not suitable for a fight. He should have prepared for a long time. We have to lure him somewhere else and then act according to his plan. Li Yunxin looked up at the golden light in the distance. Bai Yunxin was still talking to him, trying to persuade him. But that golden rock didn't seem to be in a hurry, as if he was waiting for something. Seeing his gaze, Li Chunfeng sighed in a low voice. He's waiting for you to suspect me. Li Yunxin said. Jun said you look like golden rock and you were suddenly stabbed to death by golden rock, which indeed made me suspicious. But this method is too low level. Or maybe you do look like golden rock, you've seen him. There's no resemblance, Li Chunfeng said seriously. Golden rock looks like an old man with white hair and beard. I'm just asking. Li Yunxin smiled. Let's treat it as his plan to sow discord. Then according to the original plan, we should tell him that we're not here to take his life but to make peace. Then you'll go to him as a hostage? Li Chunfeng nodded. Things go well, we'll do that. Li Yunxin also nodded. After a moment of silence he said, I also hope everything goes well and goes as planned. I'm having a good time these days. I hope he reins in his horse before it's too late, repents and doesn't make us unhappy. I don't want to see you die here. Li Yunxin looked at him and said, Actually, I really want us to go back to Shuanghu City together. Li Chunfeng smiled slightly. Li Yunxin then let go of Jun's body, letting it fall to the ground. Then he raised his voice and said, Rock King. Don't you think you're being too modest? You're the lord of a region. Do you think your life or death depends on me? Chapter 844. The golden light laughed heartily, but it didn't sound like an old man's voice. It could be a middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s. He laughed 3 times and said, When I was in the seal, I heard my daughter mention you. After getting out of the seal, I knew more about you. That's why I knew which person you targeted would have a good ending. Now that you've gained the favor of those people over there, you're different. If I'm not wrong, Cloud Mountain should be above our heads now. You're the one who's being humble. My poor silly daughter still worries that I'm going to harm you. She doesn't know that if you didn't mean to harm me, I'd be lucky. As he said this, the golden light suddenly expanded. Xianxia, the situation now is not something you can control. Leave for now. He didn't seem to do anything, but Bai Yunxin's body suddenly stiffened and she fell straight from the sky. After falling for about 1,000 feet, a demon general suddenly rushed up from below and caught her. She should be placed in Cloud Top Palace. Li Yunxin retracted his gaze and smiled slightly. You and Lord Dongting handle things very similar. The golden rock actually understood what he was talking about and smiled again. We demons handle things differently from humans. You have a loving father by your side to take care of you, so you naturally feel that demons are heartless and cruel. But if you don't let go like humans, you'll be harming your own child. I spoiled my daughter too much. She relied on my power to travel the world, feeling carefree and happy without knowing the dangers. She actually fell in love with you and thought that there's a possibility of a good ending between us. Li Chunfeng spoke at this moment. Rock King, listen to me. He reached out and patted Li Yunxin's arm, looked at him deeply, then cupped his hands and walked forward. Only when the two of them were in front of each other did he say, We wanted to kill you in the past. But that was because we didn't understand you at that time. We thought you were like the demons we usually see, vicious and cunning, and that it was impossible for us to coexist peacefully. But when I talked to you before, I realized that you're not mediocre. Otherwise, the Art Saint wouldn't have cooperated with you. You also reconstructed the body of the cat demon under Yun Exen and treated the saints of the mysterious sect with great courtesy. So I realized that it was possible to talk to you. The Cloud Mountain is indeed high up in the sky. But we are only doing this for the sake of safety. You and Yun Exen are both grand exalts. Once you start fighting, let alone the heavenly fiend cliff, even the surrounding countries will be plunged into misery. It'll be no different from the apocalypse. Yun Xinji and I are not in the Midland. Perhaps we will go to the Netherworld soon. If you are not here in the Middle-earth, it will be hard to avoid the demons running amok and war will break out again. Logically speaking, it's the best choice to have you, the Supreme Rock King, to control the demons on the continent. Unless there is no other choice, no one would be willing to make an enemy out of a mighty lord like you. The Golden Rock seemed to think for a while. Then why are you here today? It's to show my sincerity, Li Chunfeng said seriously, and also to save Dragon Jiao and Lu Gongzan. Now that both of them are free, we have nothing else to ask for. The ball of golden light dimmed slightly, revealing a human figure within it. But the face was still blurred, and only his movements could be vaguely seen. Everyone can say beautiful words, but it's hard to say when it comes to real actions. The golden rock sneered. If I really feel relieved because of your sincere words, I would have been buried in the belly of a demon long ago. Li Chunfeng, if you don't want us to start a war, I have a suggestion. But I don't know if you dare to say yes. Li Chunfeng smiled. Just say it, Rock King. Please come to our heavenly mockery palace. The golden rock said in a deep voice, our heavenly mockery palace is vast and full of natural powers. It's not inferior to those caves in Daotong and Kenzhou. You can also cultivate as a guest in our heavenly mockery palace. As long as Dragon King doesn't make an enemy of me, I will treat you as my honored guest. What do you think of this suggestion? Li Chunfeng smiled again. Rock King, you want to use me as a hostage? You can put it that way. I don't really care. Li Chunfeng shook his head. But do you really think someone like Dragon King will be tied down by a single person? We want to live in peace with you because of the current situation, not because of any personal feelings. If the day comes when we have no choice but to fight, so what if I, Li Chunfeng, die? I won't put Yunxin in a difficult position. It's unnecessary for you to use me as a hostage. The golden rock laughed. Mr. Li, you're wrong. Although Dragon King is a demon and has a reputation for being cold and heartless, he's actually a person who values relationships. If not, he wouldn't have risked his life to save Lu Gongzan, nor would he have tangled with my daughter for so long. As for the father-son relationship between you two, I've heard of it. It's said that you've long since put aside your former enmity and made up. If you stay in our heavenly mockery palace, it definitely won't be something that doesn't matter, as you say. Li Yunxin stood quietly in the air listening to their conversation. Halfway through he yawned. He had collected the dragon souls of the 9th young master and Lu Gongzan. They weren't kept in the Huangyu heavenly scroll but in his palace. Like the remnant souls of humans and ordinary demons, dragon souls were precious things. Without a body to rely on and the opportunity to become a ghost cultivator, they would be damaged. Although they wouldn't gradually disappear like ordinary remnant souls, they would still be affected. Previously, Su Weng, the reincarnation of the sage of calligraphy Su Yusong, had slipped into his palace to reconstruct the tribulation body of the 6 desires for Lu Ling. This meant that the palace was a good place to nurture such remnant souls and dragon souls. As he kept them there. After all, the 9th young master's realm was low. He was also affected by Lu Jun's death, and his dragon soul seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. Lu Gongzan, on the other hand, was at a higher realm, so he wasn't affected much. Thus, when he heard Li Chunfeng and the Golden Rock arguing, he diverted his attention to talk to old Lu in the palace. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. Now that he could talk to him again, he felt more at ease. While the two of them were talking, Lu Gongzan didn't stay idle. He first listened to Li Yunxin tell him about the recent events through voice transmission. He pondered for a while and said to him, I don't think this matter is as simple as it looks. Li Yunxin yawned. Yes. Hearing his tone, Lu Gongzan could imagine his expression. He should be as indifferent and careless as before. He said anxiously, Brother Xen, be careful. That's the Golden Rock, not those demons from before. After all, he's a Grand Supreme. In my opinion, the two of them. You want to work together to harm me. Li Yunxin used her divine sense to send a voice transmission. There was even a hint of laughter in her voice. We're just acting. They don't mind being long-winded, but I'm tired of listening. However, they're doing their job seriously and putting on a show. Old Lu was surprised. You just said you were suspicious. Why are you so sure now? At this time, Li Chunfeng said loudly, All right. Since Golden Rock King thinks so, we'll do as you say. If Dragon King nods and gives his permission, I'm fine with it. After saying this, he turned around and looked at Li Yunxin seriously. But then he found that Li Yunxin seemed to be absent-minded at the moment. He frowned slightly and looked around. It was as if there was a flying insect around and he was a cat attracted by the flying insect. The Golden Rock followed Li Chunfeng's gaze and looked at him, only to see his reaction. Seeing him like this, he asked, What is Dragon King looking at? A ghost. Li Yunxin answered casually as if all his attention was attracted by that thing. A ghost of dragons wandering in the sky above Midland. Li Chunfeng and the Golden Rock paused slightly. Then the Golden Rock smiled. Dragon King, are you talking about Lu Jun's dragon soul? Li Yunxin let out a long breath and said, yes. The souls of dragons never die. Lu Jun's dragon soul is near the Sky Fiend Cliff. Look, it's right there. He pointed his finger downwards. The two of them looked down with rapt attention, and indeed they found the dragon soul. Lu Jun's soul was hiding in the dense woods around the Sky Fiend Cliff, wandering around. Normally when dragons die, their souls should immediately go to Dragon Sun, who is closest to them. Li Yunxin frowned. But this guy didn't go. He seems to be looking for something. Golden Rock King, I guess he is looking for the Sky Fiend. Is the Sky Fiend hiding somewhere that he can't go? Strange. The Golden Rock glanced at Li Chunfeng and said in a deep voice, it's just a small thing. Dragon King, what do you think of my suggestion? Li Yunxin took back his gaze. He stared at the Golden Rock for a while, then at Li Chunfeng. Finally he said, I don't like this suggestion. Li Chunfeng. He was silent for a while and slowly raised his hand. Actually, you don't have to go. Many things require choices. Once you choose the wrong path, the result is usually irreversible. I don't want to see you go to the Sky Fiend Palace as a hostage. I'd rather you stand on my side. Even if I have to fight this Golden Rock King, I won't regret it. But now the right to choose is not with me but with you. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. After he finished speaking, he didn't put down his hand. Li Chunfeng looked at him from afar and was silent for a while. Then he said, Yunxin, the situation is pressing. I'll go to the Sky Fiend Palace. After saying this, he retreated a few hundred feet and stopped beside the Golden Rock. Li Yunxin suddenly laughed loudly, his voice shaking the sky. Then he stopped laughing and his face was as cold as iron. Good. Li Chunfeng, I've given you many chances. Even until a moment ago I was still thinking that maybe at such a critical moment, you would suddenly find your conscience and think that you can at least stop before it's too late. He took a deep breath and then let it out. Since you've decided to go this way, can you tell me first what benefits killing me will bring you? Li Chunfeng's face was filled with astonishment. Then his eyes widened. Yunxin, what do you mean? Li Yunxin waved his hand. There's no need to act now. Lu Jun is dead and the dragon soul should possess the evil spirit. But the evil spirit is at the Heaven Fiend Cliff and she came with you just now. Now the dragon soul of Lu Jun can't find her. I thought about it. Where could she be? She must have been imprisoned and stored away. But before this Supreme Golden Rock King shows up, who can subdue this peak profound realm under my eyes without making any noise? He smiled coldly. It's you, isn't it? You're also a Supreme Golden Rock King. When I couldn't find any news about you in Double Tiger City's Hongtai Tower, I suspected this. Only today did I dare to confirm that you, the Supreme Golden Rock, have been hiding and acting under someone else's orders. But I'm dying of curiosity. The Golden Rock didn't speak. However, Li Chunfeng slowly restrained his expression, and his eyes were filled with disappointment. Yunxin, I know you're paranoid, but I didn't expect you to still be suspicious of me after spending so many days with me. He shook his head slightly and smiled sadly. What do you think? I came to his side and then conspired with him to plot against you, kill you, and then celebrate with him? Li Yunxin smiled. I thought you would ask Yunshan to kill me. He slowly opened his arms, raised his head and said loudly, Come on. Let me see what you have up your sleeves. Li Chunfeng also laughed. Ha. I'll tell you now. I'm indeed at the Supreme Golden Realm. I did conspire with this Golden Rock King to kill you here. His expression turned cold again. But you should know that there are too many people around you and not everyone can be trusted. If I didn't hide this from you, how could I have gained his trust? How could I have done this? Even a vicious tiger doesn't eat its cubs. Hearing this, the Golden Rock's expression changed. However, Li Chunfeng had already pounced on him. In an instant, golden light shone around him and mist enshrouded him. Countless divine soldiers and generals flashed in the void, surrounding him and the Golden Rock King tightly. Bandit! The Golden Rock roared angrily. So this is what you're planning. The Golden Rock King retreated and at the same time launched a palm strike. His palm strike looked like an ordinary martial artist's technique. The palm strike was sharp and it was extremely fast. However, apart from that, there didn't seem to be any earth-shattering aura, nor was there any phenomenon like the sun and moon losing their light. However, because he was at the Supreme Golden Realm, he returned to his natural state. A fight between Supreme Golden Realm experts was already the world's top martial strength. All the divine abilities and spells seen by ordinary people could only be superfluous. Instead, all the power and mysterious methods were contained in a seemingly ordinary punch and kick. If it was a common plot in the popular novels of Li Yunxin's previous world, it would be, this palm strike has nowhere to hide. It seems to contain the great Tao of heaven and earth and mysterious laws. Li Chunfeng couldn't hide and he didn't want to. He seemed to have only one goal, to trap the golden rock in this space so that he had nowhere to hide. With the power of a supreme golden realm, even another supreme golden rock would find it difficult to escape in an instant if he were to risk his life to do so. He actually took the palm strike head-on. An indescribable loud sound spread out. Li Chunfeng spat out blood, but the golden light restriction around him suddenly retracted, trapping the golden rock within it. At this moment he raised his voice and shouted, "Grandmaster D, come." The world seemed to have stopped for a moment. At this moment, all sounds became distant, faintly discernible and lost their reality. Then the sky was torn apart by a white light. The white light, which was as thick as a finger, came down from above and hit the golden light restriction that Li Chunfeng had risked his life to create. The golden ball instantly turned into a blazing sun, bursting with dazzling light and terrifying heat. The ground below was more than 10,000 meters away, but it instantly turned into a sea of fire. Even the rare treasure in the golden rock's mouth, the parasol tree, was set ablaze. As far as the eye could see, the entire world was engulfed in flames. Chapter 845. However, this terrifying explosion only lasted for a breath's time. The dazzling white light where the golden rock and Li Chunfeng were hit suddenly retracted and turned into a rolling cloud of fire. Thunder boomed high up in the sky, and the terrifying shockwave caused Li Yunxin's robe to flutter. In another 4 breaths' time he rushed to the ground. The flames on the ground were instantly extinguished. Everything that was protruding or sunken, charred trees, hills, rivers, valleys and even the heaven-fiend cliff, was instantly flattened by this power. Everything that the shockwave passed through turned into ashes. The ground became extremely smooth and flat, even reflecting the blazing sun and fire in the sky. In these 5 breaths' time, the terrifying heat and pressure turned the area that was just a sea of fire into glass. The shockwave then rolled in all directions like countless man-eating evil spirits, destroying all life until it reached the point where the naked eye couldn't see. Furthermore, this was merely the aftermath of the first strike from the 2 grand supreme powerhouses. What followed was an even more terrifying gale. The huge explosion dispersed the air within a radius of several hundred miles, and the wind from higher altitudes rushed down. The wind was as sharp as knives. Even steel would be torn into powder in such a gale. They followed the direction of the shockwave and whistled into the distance, polishing the entire ground. At this point, the ground had completely become a mirror. The thick cloud of fire in the sky also became a fire tornado, engulfing the huge parasol tree that was unexpectedly not destroyed in such a disaster. Then a figure rushed out like a shooting star with thick smoke billowing behind him. No, it should be said that he was blasted out. The Grand Supreme Rock King, who was surrounded by golden light and flickering, immediately caught up to him and heavily hit him 3 more times with his palm. He roared, "You guys don't know what's good for you." Li Chunfeng was like a kite with a broken string, flying backward for another several hundred feet before he could barely breathe and speak. But his voice was hoarse and choked as if his throat had been crushed, and he could only use the muscles on his neck to squeeze air to speak. Attack. However, Li Yunxin stood high in the sky and looked at them coldly. When the golden rock caught up to him again, he struck 2 more palm strikes and broke Li Chunfeng's arms, then said, "Attack what? To kill you or him? You are the Supreme One. But now you're acting a little too weak." He took a deep breath, clenched his fists in his sleeves and then loosened them. "I'm afraid that if I really make a move, you'll immediately become lively and give me a slap." The golden rock immediately laughed wildly. "Ha! What a filial son. Do you know that your good father released his spiritual energy just now and used all his strength to imprison me there? It was as if he had opened up his chest and trapped me inside. He wanted to use such a suicidal method to take me down with him. In the end, your Yunshan was useless. Did he think he could kill me with such a strike? I've lost my life in vain. A burst of dazzling light suddenly appeared around the golden rock, and in the blink of an eye, it appeared behind Li Chunfeng and grabbed him by the neck. Li Chunfeng. By now you should know that this is the result of being too smart and scheming. If your son doesn't believe you, you will die. Awesome. This scene was very much like a fight between two ordinary martial artists. One was exhausted and crippled while the other grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up. However, if one looked closely, they would realize that both figures were very blurry. In reality, both Li Chunfeng and the Golden Rock were still in the midst of an extremely intense fight. Li Chunfeng's figure changed thousands of times in a breath's time in an attempt to escape, but the Golden Rock also countered every move he made, sealing off all his escape routes. Thus, the air around the two of them began to rumble, and after another 3 breaths, it became red hot, and then turned into rolling clouds of fire. At this point, all the methods of painting, Daotong and Kenzo were useless. Daoist techniques and cultivation were different paths that led to the same goal. In the end, it was only to cultivate to the supreme realm and strengthen the body. At the peak, no matter what technique it would only follow one or a few seemingly mysterious rules. On the other hand, the supreme experts could observe all things and comprehend the simplest great Tao in their hearts. Moreover, this golden rock had cultivated all the way from the Daoist techniques, so his understanding of Daoist techniques was not inferior to Li Chunfeng's. Previously, the golden rock had gained the upper hand and was heavily injured. At this point, one wrong step after another and it was difficult for him to counterattack. In a battle between experts in the mortal world, victory or defeat could only be determined by a hair's breadth. It was the same for top-notch cultivators and demons. The two of them were locked in a stalemate for 3 breaths' time, but it was unknown how many thousands of times they had exchanged blows. Finally, Li Chunfeng's figure suddenly became clear, as if he had given up all his efforts. He only stared in the direction where Li Yunshin was and said hoarsely, "Forget it. Forget it, you're so cautious. Even if I die, I can rest assured. However, you should know." His neck was in the golden rock's hand, almost squeezing it into a thin piece of skin. Now these words were said by forcefully channeling his divine power. "I know you have a way to save me. Why would I use this trick to trick you into saving me now?" The golden rock seemed to be very satisfied with the current situation. His face was shrouded in golden light, but one could see that he raised his head slightly. Li Chunfeng. A pair of father and son plotted against me, but I managed to break through the trap. This is truly an unprecedented miracle. Since it's a miracle, I'll let you say a few more words. Let's see what interesting things you two can say. Li Yunshin lowered his head slightly in the sky and looked at them calmly. After a moment of silence, he sighed softly. "Yes. I have a way to save you, Li Chunfeng. So you should also know that if you really have no intention of harming me, everything you've done today will not be in vain. After all, you've injured the golden rock. Right now, he's squeezing your neck and asking you to talk to me just to buy time to recover from his injury." At this point, he raised his hand as if he was feeling the wind around him. However, this wind was strong and it immediately made his palm shine slightly. As strong as the wind was the spiritual qi between heaven and earth. Spiritual qi. The spiritual qi within thousands of miles, even tens of thousands of miles, was madly gathering toward the golden rock's body. Even Li Yunshin could see that this grand supreme rock king was not as relaxed as he looked. Yunshan's attack had indeed caused great damage to him. The intense battle with Li Chunfeng had only lasted for 10 breaths, and he had also used his full strength. Now his injury was indeed slowly recovering. The golden light surrounding his body was originally flickering, but it also slowly calmed down, just a little dimmer. "So I feel that, if you really want to help me, you should die immediately." Li Yunshin raised his hand and slowly pulled out the white hairpin on his head. As a result, his black hair fell down and fluttered in the wind. In the next moment, the hairpin suddenly expanded and revealed its original appearance. The wolf spine raging lion spear. "Only then can I feel at ease and kill this golden rock to take revenge for you." The golden rock laughed loudly. "Wonderful. What a heart of stone. Li Chunfeng, your son has seen through everything, but you're acting like a little girl here. Now even I can't stand it anymore." His voice suddenly turned cold. I'll let you have a quick death. His other hand suddenly reached into the back of Li Chuanfeng's heart. It seemed to have grabbed his heart. With a bang it exploded. Then he pulled it out, dripping with blood, and hit the Tianling acupoint. Li Chuanfeng's remnant soul was about to escape from the Tianling acupoint when it suffered this attack. However, it did not immediately turn into a misty clear light and dissipate. Instead it escaped diagonally like a loach. Even though the Grand Supreme Rock was dead, his remnant soul would not be stunned for a moment like ordinary people. However, the Golden Rock seemed to have expected this. His other hand suddenly reached out and caught it. Without saying a word, without hesitation, his palms glowed with an alloy light. The remnant soul was destroyed and turned into pure spiritual energy that gathered between heaven and earth. Then it was absorbed by the Golden Rock's body. Thus, the golden light around his body suddenly expanded, and he actually returned to his appearance before he was hit by Yun Shan. Li Chuanfeng's corpse fell straight to the ground. Because it was extremely high up in the sky, it looked like it was falling very slowly. This soulless Grand Supreme body lost its divine power, so the clothes that were originally illusionary on it also fell off. The strong wind from high up in the sky fiercely washed away the blood, and polished it until it shone slightly, as if the entire body was made of gold and stone. Li Yunxin calmly watched it fall for a while, let out a light sigh and chased after it. He flew to the side of the corpse in the blink of an eye. At this time the corpse was only a few hundred feet away from the Golden Rock. For a Grand Supreme expert, it was almost as if they were stuck together. The Rock King immediately used his demon power, and the golden light around his body shone brightly. Good. Let's fight. However, Li Yunxin swept past him and held Li Chuanfeng's corpse. He did not even cast any restrictions, nor did he release any demon power. It was as if the Golden Rock was just a harmless statue that could not hurt him at all, and he did not need to be on guard at all. This action stunned the Rock King. He forcibly stopped the well-prepared strike and his voice was filled with vigilance. What are you doing? Don't worry, Rock King. Li Yunxin carried Li Chuanfeng's corpse down without turning around. Beside him, the giant parasol tree was burning ragingly like a towering torch. Even the sun was dimmed slightly. I've wanted to have a good fight with someone for a long time. So, I don't want my opponent to be weaker than him. I won't feel happy even if I win. Li Chunfeng is dead. You're the only Grand Supreme expert in Midland. While talking, he had already flown over 10 miles away and landed on the ground. His voice still lingered in the Golden Rock's ears as if they were talking face to face. So, you're the only one who can make me fight with all of my power without any worries. Fighting against an opponent like you is like studying a rare incomplete book in the world. I have to take a bath, change my clothes, burn incense, pray and recover my spirit before I can fight. He landed on the ground and put Li Chuanfeng's corpse down. This former Grand Supreme expert died with his eyes wide open. Li Yunxin stared at him for a while, then sighed and said in a low voice, Alas. To be honest. When you're a corpse, I feel much better than when you're alive. After a while, the Grand Supreme Golden Rock finally landed. He didn't look as arrogant as he did when he killed a Grand Supreme expert just now. The golden light around his body was dimmed, covering his body like a layer of armor. Standing tens of steps away from Li Yunxin, he slightly tilted his head and looked at him, seeming to be confused. In the end he said, No wonder my daughter loves you. You're interesting. He thought for a while and said, You're a gentleman. Li Yunxin smiled and said, Rock King, please take a good rest. I was going to deal with you too. Now that one is gone, I feel much more relaxed. I don't want to take advantage of you. After saying this, he turned his head and shook his loose hair away from his eyes, then dug a hole in the ground with the spear in his hand. This spear could easily cut the ground of Dragon Island and Penglai Island, so it was very easy to use it to cut the ground here. He didn't use any divine ability, only his physical strength. After a while he dug a hole 6 feet deep. Then he kicked Li Chuanfeng's corpse into the hole, walked along the hole and filled in the soil and rocks that were as bright as metal. It took him about a quarter of an hour to do all this. The golden rock stared at him, never looking away. The chi activity around his body probed in all directions like tentacles, on guard against any strange movements or sudden attacks from him. But when he saw Li Yunxin standing beside the slightly bulging grave, putting her palms together and bowing 3 times, he could not help but say in a low voice, Since you feel that he wanted to harm you, Why bother burying him and worshipping him? Li Yunxin sighed softly. After all, he once made me feel happy 10 years ago. Human. The golden rock snorted. Although he was talking, he didn't stop absorbing the spiritual power between heaven and earth. The strong wind from high up in the sky had gradually weakened, but because of the crazy gathering of spiritual power, there was still a faint buzzing sound in the air. He thought for a while, then said, Li Chunfeng injured me and he did die. Why are you still so sure that he wanted to harm you? Li Yunxin didn't answer him immediately. Instead he said something in a low voice, then smiled slightly. The golden rock immediately became alert. Who are you talking to? Lu Gongzan. You know him. Li Yunxin pointed at his sleeve. He just told me that you were asking me questions again and that you were stalling for time. He told me to act quickly in case something unexpected happened. But I told him that the Supreme Rock King is always the mighty Lord of Midland. I said that I wanted a fair fight and that I would give him time to recover so he wouldn't refuse. But if I really wanted to harm him, the Supreme Rock King wouldn't rely on me to stall for time. You asked me some things only because it would be awkward for two people to stand face to face and stare at each other without speaking. So we just chatted for a while to kill time. The golden rock sneered and said, Lu Gongzan is right. The longer we stall, the worse it will be for you. I know that your Supreme Rock King is made from the netherworld power. You can't gain any advantage fighting against me in Midland.